Chapter 3878. Lu Ming and Ling Yue glanced at each other. Their vitality stones could sense it. Could it be that there was really an important treasure in that direction? Let's go and take a look, said Lu Ming as he put away the fragments of his life spirit origin stone. Ling Yue also put it away. The two of them turned into two streaks of light and flew in that direction. As the two of them continued moving forward, their life spirit origin stones started vibrating more and more. They were constantly vibrating in their minds. There was definitely something extraordinary in front of them. Otherwise, their life spirit origin stones wouldn't be like that. The two of them were filled with anticipation. After a few hours, they finally made a big discovery. The sky in front of them was completely covered by a layer of light. The multicolored light was divided into two colors, one crimson red and the other dark blue. The two lights covered half the sky. Even if they were very far away, they could still see them. Is it really a treasure? The two of them looked pensive as they thought about the swamp from before. Previously, Xiao Ji had purposely created an illusion that there was a treasure in the sky. It had attracted a large number of strong cultivators and caused them to fall into a trap. Now, the light of the treasure filled the air again. Lu Ming and Ling Yue had no choice but to be more cautious. The two of them withdrew their qi and continued flying. Then, a gigantic mountain appeared in front of them. This mountain was extremely majestic. It was unknown how big it was, but it towered into the sky. The two rays of light were emitted from the top of the mountain. Swish, swish, swish. When the two of them got closer, they realized that there were many people flying around the mountain. They were also strong cultivators from the chaotic Demon Star region. Previously, Xiao Wuji's plan did not attract everyone because some people were too far away and did not see it. It was obvious that another group of people had been attracted to that place. However, there weren't many people who had been attracted to that place, but there were still many strong cultivators among them. In front of them, an old man in red robes was standing in the air. His robes were fluttering in the wind. He released a terrifying qi. Many people distanced themselves from him, not daring to get close. That old man in red robes was a famous strong cultivator in the chaotic Demon Star region. He was a top cultivator of the 7th godly emperor layer. However, these people stood around the mountain peak, not daring to approach. Lu Ming and Ling Yue flew closer. When they looked at the mountain peak again, their hearts shook violently and their eyes couldn't help but widen, because they saw a shocking scene. Many living beings were sitting cross-legged on the mountain peak. Some of these creatures were in the form of beasts, some were in the form of humans, and some were in the form of plants. However, they all had one thing in common, and that was that they had all turned into dried corpses. Yes, all of them had turned into dried corpses. Their essence, energy, and soul had been sucked away. As far as the eye could see, the entire mountain was covered with these dried corpses. Terrifying, strange, terrifying, and full of mystery. Lu Ming and Ling Yue's eyes were filled with shock. These people were obviously from Bing Xian's soul palace, but why was it like this? It wasn't hard to tell that the creatures on the mountain had gathered here on their own accord. These living beings gathered around the mountain peak, and then their essence, energy, and spirit were instantly sucked away. What exactly happened back then? Besides, why didn't the big shots of the chaotic devil starfield dare to climb the mountain? Could it be that there was danger on the mountain peak? Lu Ming and Ling Yue naturally wouldn't climb the mountain so easily. However, when they arrived at this place, the fragments of their life spirit origin stones were already shaking violently, as if they were about to break out of their bodies and fly out. Damn it! After these dried corpses died, they even left behind an indestructible battle soul. How troublesome! Isn't that so? There must be a supreme treasure at the top of this mountain. Around them, some people were discussing in low voices. Their gazes were cast towards the top of the mountain, and their greed was extremely strong. Indestructible battle soul? Lu Ming's heart stirred as he fell into deep thought. All of you, come with me. Let's charge again. At this moment, the red-robed old man scanned his surroundings with a gaze as cold as lightning. Senior Red Devil, we can join hands, but let's make this clear first. Once we reach the top of the mountain, we will also have a share of the treasures above. A middle-aged man said. Oh, is that so? The red-robed old man smiled, looking very amiable. However, in the next moment, his eyes flashed with killing intent. His figure turned into a red light and suddenly pounced towards the middle-aged man. His speed was so fast that the middle-aged man couldn't even react. Slash! Blood splashed everywhere, and a horrible shriek spread in the air. The red-robed old man's claws had already pierced through the middle-aged man's head and twisted it off. Slash, slash, slash. The sound of people taking deep breaths spread in the air. They were all terrified. You're overestimating yourself. You want to negotiate with me? Now, if I tell you to attack, do you understand? Said the red-robed old man ferociously. His eyes were filled with killing intent as he glanced at everyone. Lu Ming and Ling Yuwei's expressions didn't change, but the others looked terrified. Only the red-robed old man had the strength of the 7th godly emperor layer. He couldn't compete with the red-robed old man. Even though there were a few cultivators of the 6th godly emperor layer, the difference between the 6th and 7th godly emperor layer was too great. Hurry up and come here. Let's attack together, shouted the red-robed old man coldly. The others had no choice but to move closer to the red-robed old man. They planned to attack together with him. However, Lu Ming and Ling Yuwei didn't move. You too, you want to die? The red-robed old man glanced at Lu Ming and Ling Yuwei. His eyes were filled with killing intent. Even though he didn't care about Lu Ming and Ling Yuwei's cultivation levels, he didn't think that Ling Yuwei and Lu Ming could help him. However, the two of them had ignored his orders, which made him very unhappy. He had to make an example out of them. You don't have the right to order us, said Ling Yuwei indifferently. What? I don't have the right? Ha ha ha. The red-robed old man burst into laughter. Tears were about to come out of his eyes. A small shrimp of the 1st godly emperor layer said that he didn't have the right to order them? What a joke. You overestimate yourself. You go and kill him. The red-robed old man pointed at a cultivator of the 3rd godly emperor layer. Yes. The cultivator of the 3rd godly emperor layer accepted the order and rushed towards Ling Yuwei. However, the moment he rushed out, Lu Ming also moved. He stepped out and faced that person. Little boy, you're just a quasi-emperor layer cultivator and you want to save the beauty? You overestimate yourself. Die. The cultivator of the 3rd godly emperor layer smiled ferociously and slashed at Lu Ming with his blade. It was as if he could already see Lu Ming being cut in half. Clang! Lu Ming slashed out with his palm, facing that person's blade. This time everyone laughed. A quasi-emperor layer cultivator actually wanted to use his bare hands to block the blade of a cultivator of the 3rd godly emperor layer. Was he crazy? But in the next moment, everyone's smiles froze on their faces. Chapter 38-79. Clang! Lu Ming's hand collided with the blade of the 3rd godly emperor layer. The sound of porcelain breaking spread in the air. The surface of the saber was covered with fine cracks. With a bang, it exploded into pieces. Not only his saber, but his entire body was also filled with cracks. Ah! That person let out a cry of despair, and then his entire body exploded, turning into pieces, completely dead. Everyone else at the scene was dumbfounded. A cultivator of the 3rd godly emperor layer had been killed by a quasi-emperor. What was going on? This was beyond their understanding. The eyes of the old red-robed man widened too. So it's 2 demonic geniuses, the old man in the red robe said coldly. Then a ferocious look appeared on his face. I know you're from a big clan, but this is the chaotic Devil's Starfield. Even if you're a tiger, you'll still have to lie down. If you disobey me, you'll die. Boom! The red-robed old man's body erupted with a powerful aura. It was as if he could topple mountains and trample the seas as he pressed towards Lu Ming and Ling Yue. He wanted to personally take action and deal with Lu Ming and Ling Yue. But at this time, Ling Yue took out the Elven King's bow that was stained with blood, and a towering tree appeared behind her. Endless energy poured into her body, and with a pull of the bowstring, an emerald green arrow appeared, aimed at the red-robed elder. The figure of the old man in the red robe instantly tensed, as if a terrifying presence was staring at him. Ling Yue's arrow brought him a strong sense of danger. His figure could not help but stop, and his eyes rolled around a few times. Haha, as expected, the younger generation will surpass us in time. Forget it, this old man is already so old. I won't lower myself to your level. Do as you please. The rest of you, charge with this old man. The red-robed old man laughed and found himself a way out. Facing Ling Yue, he wasn't confident, so he decided to give up. The others did not dare to disobey the red-robed old man's orders. They followed the red-robed old man and rushed towards the mountain peak. Lu Ming and Ling Yue stared at the mountain peak, wanting to see what would happen. The red-robed elder and the others were very cautious. They rushed to the top of the mountain at an astonishing speed. However, when they flew into the mountain range, the motionless corpses suddenly glowed with a dim light. Fight, fight, fight! Kill, kill, kill! Terrifying battle cries reverberated throughout heaven and earth. It was as if there were thousands of soldiers and horses. Then, shadows rushed out from those mummified corpses. These shadows were the undying fighting souls, left behind by the top powers. They seemed to be guarding this place. Once there was an invasion, these undying fighting souls would be activated. At that instant, at least a few hundred battle spirits charged toward the red-robed old man and his crew, surrounding them and attacking them fiercely. These fighting souls were extremely powerful. Those who were not strong enough were killed immediately. The red-robed elder roared angrily. His aura went berserk, and his divine power surged as he launched a counterattack. However, his attack did not seem to have much effect on the fighting souls. The fighting souls only flashed a few times before they continued to pounce on the red-robed elder and the rest as if nothing had happened. In the end, other than the red-robed elder, the others were injured. They coughed up blood and retreated. Even the red-robed elder could not withstand it. He charged forward with all his might. However, an even more terrifying fighting soul appeared, causing the red-robed elder to turn pale with fright. He quickly retreated out of the range of the mountain. After they left the range of the mountain, the undying fighting souls turned into rays of dim light and disappeared into the bodies of the mummified corpses. What a terrifying, undying fighting soul! Its strength is extremely shocking. Ling Yue whispered with a grave expression. Through the short exchange earlier, they could see that the fighting souls were extremely powerful. It seemed that the closer they got to the mountain, the more terrifying the fighting souls were. On the surface, there were countless mummified corpses sitting cross-legged. How many terrifying fighting souls were there? Especially when looking from afar, they could see some figures sitting cross-legged at the top of the mountain. How terrifying were those! Obviously, the others had thought of this as well. Damn it, there are treasures, but we can't get them. Someone sighed. There was a treasure mountain in front of them, but they could not take it. They felt terrible. A group of people surrounded the mountain peak, staring at the treasure light emitted from the top of the mountain. However, at this moment, Lu Ming and Ling Yue felt that the life-spirit origin stone fragments in their bodies were trembling more and more violently, as if they were about to break out of their bodies and fly out. It was as if there was something outside that had a strong attraction to them. Treasures, they are all treasures. Lu Ming, these undying fighting souls are all treasures. The life-spirit origin stone, Spirit shouted. Of course, only Lu Ming could hear it. These undying fighting souls are all treasures? What kind of treasure is this? Lu Ming asked in surprise. Using the Life Spirit Origin Stone fragments, you can store these undying fighting souls for your use. You must know that the Life Spirit Origin Stone is one of the 4 great treasures of the Life Spirit Heavenly Court. Each of them has a special effect. The Life Spirit Origin Stone can be said to be the symbol of the Life Spirit Heavenly Court. These undying fighting souls, left behind by the experts of the Life Spirit Heavenly Court, can be stored within. The more Life Spirit Origin Stone fragments you have, the more you can store. The Life Spirit Origin Stone, Spirit explained. Lu Ming's eyes lit up and his heart thumped. Even his breathing became hurried. The Life Spirit Origin Stone fragments could actually absorb those undying fighting souls. Lu Ming had seen the power of the undying fighting souls just now. The red-robed elder and the others had only just rushed to the mountain peak and were already injured by the undying fighting souls. They had not even rushed far. As they went further, the strength of the undying fighting souls was even more terrifying. If he could take these undying fighting souls into his bag, how strong would his fighting strength be? How can I absorb those undying fighting souls? Lu Ming asked. It's very simple. As long as you hold the Life Spirit Origin Stone fragments in your hand and inject your strength into it, when you get close to the undying fighting souls, you will be able to absorb them. Those undying fighting souls will definitely not resist. The Life Spirit Origin Stone Spirit said. All right. Lu Ming nodded his head and looked at Ling Yue. He also happened to see Ling Yue looking at him. He knew that Ling Yue would definitely know of the secret as well. Her stone spirit would definitely tell him as well. Make your move. Lu Ming sent a sound transmission to Ling Yue. Ling Yue nodded. Following that, the 2 of them flashed and suddenly rushed towards the mountain peak. When the red-robed elder and the others saw Lu Ming and Ling Yue rushing towards the mountain peak, no one stopped them. Instead, they gloated. You really overestimate yourself. Do you think you can rush over just because you have some strength? I think he's too confident. When he's surrounded by those undying fighting souls, he'll have something to cry about. It's best to die on the front. Chapter 3880. When the red-robed elder and the others saw Lu Ming and Ling Yue rushing towards the mountain peak, they couldn't help but mock and ridicule them. But very quickly they shut their mouths, their faces filled with astonishment. When Lu Ming and Ling Yue rushed into the range of the mountain peak, a dim light appeared on the bodies of the mummies, just like before. Then, one by one, the undying battle souls rushed out and pounced towards Lu Ming and Ling Yue. At this time, a crystal appeared in Lu Ming and Ling Yue's hands. Life Spirit Origin Stone Fragment. When the few undying battle souls approached Lu Ming, they immediately stopped. One could clearly see that the undying battle soul's face revealed a comfortable and respectful expression. Then it turned into a ray of light and rushed into the Life Spirit Origin Stone Fragment, disappearing without a trace. Lu Ming could vaguely feel that there was something extra in the Life Spirit Origin Stone Fragment. On the other side, Ling Yue was the same. The few undying battle souls that were close to her directly charged into her Life Spirit Origin Stone Fragment. This, the red-robed elder and the others widened their eyes in disbelief. What are the crystals in their hands? Why can they absorb the undying battle soul? Those undying battle souls have been absorbed. Could it be that they can use them? Could that be the legendary Life Spirit Origin Stone Fragment? A voice came out from the crowd, causing everyone's hearts to tremble violently. In unison, everyone's eyes were fixed on the Life Spirit Origin Stone Fragment in Lu Ming and Ling Yue's hands. Many people had heard of the Life Spirit Origin Stone Fragment, but they had never seen it before. Hearing this, they couldn't help but let their imaginations run wild. Why would the Bing Xian Life Spirit Hall suddenly appear? Why could the crystals in Lu Ming and Ling Yue's hands make those undying battle souls reveal expressions of comfort and reverence? Perhaps it really was a fragment of the Life Spirit Origin Stone. Legend had it that the Life Spirit Origin Stone fragment was the key to finding the Life Spirit Heavenly Court. Their eyes were burning with greed. If they could snatch the Life Spirit Origin Stone fragment, would they have the chance to find the Life Spirit Heavenly Court and obtain the inheritance of the Life Spirit Heavenly Court? Thinking of this, everyone's eyes turned red. The Life Spirit Origin Stone fragment is mine. Since I've met her, she's destined to be mine. Roars rang out one after another. Everyone charged towards Lu Ming and Ling Yue in a frenzy. You're courting death. Scram! The red-robed old man shouted coldly. Dazzling red light burst out like sharp swords, piercing through the sky. The bodies of those who were pierced directly exploded, and they died on the spot. The others were shocked and distanced themselves from the red-robed elder. However, they did not want to give up on the Life Spirit Origin Stone fragment and continued to charge towards Lu Ming and Ling Yue. Go up! Lu Ming shouted softly and rushed towards the top of the mountain, with Ling Yue following closely behind. On the side, those undying battle souls could not affect Lu Ming and Ling Yue at all. Some of those who rushed overstopped in fear, and some directly rushed into the fragments of the Life Spirit Origin Stone. In the blink of an eye, the two of them had rushed out tens of thousands of meters. When the red-robed old man and the others rushed into the range of the mountain, those undying battle souls crazily rushed towards them. The red-robed old man and the others couldn't resist at all and could only retreat. Some of them stayed on the mountain forever. Damn it, let's see how long you can stay here. When you come down the mountain, it will be your death. The red-robed old man roared angrily, his killing intent as cold as a blade. Lu Ming and Ling Yue smiled faintly. To be honest, they did not put the red-robed old man in their eyes at all. Although the red-robed old man was strong, they both had great killing weapons. With their great killing weapons and the two of them working together, how could they be afraid of the red-robed old man? The two of them focused their minds, holding the fragments of the Life Spirit Origin Stone in their hands, and charged towards the undying battle souls. As long as those undying battle souls were within 10 meters of the Life Spirit Origin Stone fragment, regardless of their cultivation level, they would rush into the fragment. In just a few minutes, Lu Ming had already collected over 100 undying battle souls. This caused the red-robed old man and the others to be extremely envious. Swoosh! At that moment, there was a ray of blood light in the distance. It was rushing towards them at an alarming speed. In the next instant, the blood light receded, revealing a young man's figure. Xiao Wuji. Lu Ming's gaze swept across, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. The person who had come was Xiao Wuji. The current Xiao Wuji was covered in a layer of blood light. His appearance had also changed a lot from before. In the past, he had 3 heads and 6 arms. Now, he was no different from a human. He only had 1 head and 2 arms. The only difference was that there was an additional eye between his eyebrows. He was somewhat similar to the 3-eyed race. His aura was also much more violent than before. He had already reached the first heaven god emperor realm. He also saw Lu Ming and Ling Yue on the mountain peak. You are courting death. The undying battle souls are mine. Seeing that Lu Ming and Ling Yue were collecting the undying battle souls, Xiao Wuji roared angrily. His terrifying killing intent exploded as he charged towards the mountain peak. The red-robed old man and the others were blocking his path. Get out of my way! Shouted Xiao Wuji to the red-robed old man and the others. The red-robed old man and the others were infuriated. Originally, they had treasures but could not obtain them. They could only watch as Lu Ming and Ling Yue collected the undying fighting soul on the mountain. These people were extremely unhappy. Now a young man had appeared and dared to talk to them like that. They were even more furious. Where did this little bastard come from? How dare you act so arrogantly? I'll kill you, shouted an old man of the third heaven god emperor realm furiously. He looked ferocious as he threw a punch at Xiao Wuji. His punch whistled through the air like a small mountain, oppressing Xiao Wuji. Die! Xiao Wuji's murderous intent was like a vast ocean. With a roar, the bloody glow in his hand condensed into a long sword, which he slashed out. Slash! The old man of the third heaven god emperor realm's punch was immediately cut in half. The sword light didn't stop and continued cutting the old man apart. The old man of the third heaven god emperor realm didn't even have time to scream before he was killed. The others were astonished. Another incredible cultivator, just like Lu Ming had killed a cultivator of the third heaven god emperor realm in one attack. How come there were so many incredible cultivators today? Is that the strength of the Azura, blood Azura? Whispered Ling Yue at the top of the mountain. Looking at Xiao Wuji's condition, he had probably succeeded and become Azura blood Azura. Die, die, die. Xiao Wuji's killing intent was too strong. After killing one person, his killing intent became even stronger. He let out a roar, waved his blood sword, and charged towards the crowd. Sword lights flashed, and a few more people were killed. Shit, that little boy is insane. Kill him, shouted a few cultivators of the fifth and sixth heaven god emperor realm furiously. They released their godly strength and threw themselves at Xiao Wuji. The moment someone like this made a move, it was extremely terrifying. Xiao Wuji felt a deadly sense of danger. However, in the face of danger, Xiao Wuji revealed an excited expression. The blood sword in his hand disappeared and was replaced by a broken sword. It was only half of the Azura Emperor sword. Chapter 3881. Xiao Wuji's eyes were bloodshot and filled with killing intent. The Azura clan had always been a bloodthirsty clan. After he had transformed into the blood Azura, his killing intent had grown even stronger. Kill! Kill, kill, kill! Xiao Wu roared. The broken Azura Emperor sword in his hand slashed out. This half of the Azura Emperor sword was a terrifying killing weapon. It was the same as the blood-stained Elf King Bao in Ling Yue's hand. Instantly, the sword light exploded. The terrifying sword light split open the universe, breaking through all attacks and defenses and slashing those experts. Horrible shrieks spread in the air. No matter if it was cultivators of the fifth or sixth godly emperor layer, they couldn't resist the Azura Emperor's sword's attacks. Their bodies were cut in two, and their lives were destroyed. In an instant, more than 10 experts were killed by Xiao Wuji. The remaining people were almost scared to death as they frantically retreated. Kill! Xiao Wuji's killing intent soared to the heavens. He did not want to let these people go, so he continued to attack them. It's your honor to pay tribute to my power of blood Shura. Die! Xiao Wuji's cold voice spread out in all directions. His sword continued to slash out, and several more experts were killed by him. Finally, he charged towards the red-robed elder. Boom! The red-robed old man attacked with all his strength and clashed with the red-robed old man's attack. An intense explosion rang out, and the red-robed old man was sent flying backwards. A bloody wound had appeared on his palm. However, Limitless Xiao was also blocked by him. He also retreated a few steps. The red-robed elder's expression was extremely solemn, with a faint trace of shock. Clearly, he was stunned by Xiao Wuji's strength. Die, old man! Limitless Xiao was blocked by the red-robed old man, which aroused his killing intent. He wanted to kill the red-robed old man, but the red-robed old man didn't want to fight with him. He turned and ran. Although Limitless Xiao's killing intent was heavy, he did not lose his mind. Seeing the red-robed old man run away, he stopped and did not pursue. After all, his goal was this mountain peak, the undying battle soul in Lu Ming and Ling Yue. "Now it's your turn," said Limitless Xiao while looking at Ling Yue and Lu Ming. His eyes were filled with murderous intent. He jumped up and ran towards the mountain peak. He also had fragments of the soul vitality stone in his hand. The undying battle soul were also absorbed by the fragments of the vitality spirit. His speed was very fast and unimpeded as he continuously approached Lu Ming and Ling Yue. When the distance between the two was within 10,000 meters, the half of the Azura Emperor sword in his hand slashed towards the two of them. The mighty sword light slashed towards the two of them with earth-shattering power. Lu Ming took out the Gale Pearl, while Ling Yue took out the Elf King bow that was stained with blood, preparing to fight back. However, the mountain peak was filled with undying fighting souls. Xiao Wuji's sword radiance did not fly far before it was blocked by many fighting souls. The strength of these war souls was extremely shocking. They easily blocked Xiao Wuji's sword light and were completely fine. If they did not have the life, spirit, vitality stone fragments in their hands, they would have been torn into pieces by these undying fighting souls. Humph! Seeing this, Xiao Wuji snorted and continued to charge towards Lu Ming and Ling Yue. Lu Ming and Ling Yue continued to charge towards the peak of the mountain, collecting undying battle souls along the way. Xiao Wuji tried to deal with Lu Ming and Ling Yue, but the moment his attacks flew out, they were blocked by the undying battle souls. There were too many undying battle souls. His attacks could not reach Lu Ming and Ling Yue. Damn it! Seeing Lu Ming and Ling Yue collecting undying battle souls, Xiao Wuji became anxious. In the end, he stopped attacking Lu Ming and Ling Yue and focused on collecting undying battle souls. Lu Ming and Ling Yue were so happy that they focused on collecting undying battle souls. The number of undying battle souls on the mountain peak was shocking. There were at least 100,000 of them. The three of them continued to collect, and the number of undying battle souls slowly decreased. In the end, they were too lazy to collect the low-level undying battle souls. They went to the top of the mountain to collect the high-level ones. As they approached the top of the mountain, the number of undying battle souls decreased. However, each one was even more terrifying. The aura of each undying battle soul shocked Lu Ming. It was like the universe, vast and unfathomable. Needless to say, living beings that could form these undying battle souls were definitely terrifying when they were alive. Unfortunately, they all turned into dried corpses in the end. They did not even know how they died. 2 hours later, Lu Ming, Ling Yue, and Xiao Wuji had each collected at least 20,000 undying battle souls. At this time, Lu Ming had a feeling that the life spirit stone fragment was almost full and could not absorb much more. Lu Ming and the other two rushed to the top of the mountain. At the top of the mountain was a flat land. On the flat land, there were only 8 figures. These were 8 creatures of different forms, forming a circle. Similarly, these 8 creatures had all turned into dried corpses, without the slightest bit of aura. However, the gazes of Lu Ming and the other 2 directly skipped over the 8 creatures and landed in the middle of them. In the middle of them, there were 2 rays of light that soared into the sky. The multicolored light that could be seen from afar was reflected by these 2 rays of light. The source of the light was 2 divine armaments, a saber and a snow-white staff. The 2 divine armaments emitted an unfathomable aura. Ling Yue's eyes lit up. Could this be the 18 divine armaments of the life, spirit, heavenly court? Ling Yue whispered, her voice trembling. 18 divine armaments. Lu Ming's heart was also beating wildly. He had heard Ling Yue mention it before. The 18 divine armaments could be said to be the top treasures of the life, spirit, heavenly court. In the entire great, desolate universe, They were the top treasures and were priceless. Life Spirit Heavenly Court's 9 life spirit halls, each of which had 2 guardian divine weapons. The 18 divine armament S were 18 different types of weapons. There was a saber and a staff here, and they looked so extraordinary. It was very likely that they were 2 of the 18 divine armament S. The 18 divine armament S are mine. Xiaowuji's eyes shone with a fiery light. In a flash, he pounced towards the 2 divine armament S. However, the bodies of the 8 creatures emitted a dim light. Then, 8 undying fighting souls appeared. The aura of the 8 undying fighting souls was extremely terrifying. It was simply earth-shattering. Just a wisp of aura was emitted, but Lu Ming and the other 2 felt like they were being pressed down by hundreds of planets. They almost vomited blood. The 3 of them quickly placed the life, spirit, vitality stone fragments in front of them. They continuously channeled their energy into the life, spirit, vitality stone fragments and activated them with all their might. Buzz, buzz! The life, spirit, vitality stone fragments vibrated violently. Rings of light emanated from them, emitting a mysterious aura. The 8 undying fighting souls scanned the life, spirit, vitality stone fragments and revealed puzzled looks. What a familiar feeling! Is it the life, spirit, vitality stone? Has the life, spirit, vitality stone been shattered? Have we lost? Chapter 3882. The 8 undying fighting souls mumbled. Lu Ming and the other 2 were shocked. Could it be that the 8 undying fighting souls still retained their intelligence? This was unbelievable. The 8 of them had been dead for a long time. If they still retained their intelligence, it meant that they were immortal. No, their eyes are empty. They don't seem to have any intelligence. Lu Ming said, Indeed, the 8 undying fighting souls had empty eyes. They were no different from the previous undying fighting souls. Maybe the 8 of them were too strong when they were alive. After they died, they formed the undying fighting souls and retained some of their instincts. Ling Yue said. Lu Ming nodded his head. That was probably the case. The eyes of the 8 undying fighting souls were empty. They did not seem to have any spiritual intelligence or memories. The murmurs that they were muttering were probably instinctive. It was an instinct after seeing the vitality stone fragments. Collect the 8 undying fighting souls. A voice was roaring in Lu Ming's heart. These 8 undying fighting souls were absolutely terrifying, and their strength was out of this world. If he could collect them and use them for himself, they would be a great help to him. Bam! Lu Ming stepped forward and walked towards one of the undying fighting souls. The undying fighting soul did not move and did not attack Lu Ming. Lu Ming was relieved. Originally, he was still nervous. After all, the 8 undying fighting souls were too powerful, and he was not confident. Now that he was confident, he increased his speed and approached the undying fighting soul. Seeing this, Ling Yue and Xiaowuji carried the vitality stone fragments and approached one of the undying fighting souls. Very quickly, Lu Ming was within 10 meters of the undying fighting soul. Buzz! The vitality stone fragments in Lu Ming's hand vibrated violently and emitted a strong suction force, trying to suck in the undying fighting soul. However, there was a resistance from the undying fighting soul, as if it did not want to go in. It wanted to break free from the suction force of the vitality stone fragments. Similarly, Ling Yue and Xiaowuji were in the same situation. The undying fighting soul was resisting them. Get in here! Lu Ming shouted in his heart. At the same time, he continuously infused forbidden energy into the life spirit stone. The attraction of the life spirit stone fragment suddenly increased. On the undying fighting soul's body, a dim light flickered and flickered continuously. It seemed that it could not resist the attraction of the life spirit metastone fragment, and its body was drawn closer and closer to the fragment. About a minute later, with a swoosh, the undying fighting soul turned into a ray of light and flew into the life spirit stone fragment. It was successfully collected by the Life Spirit stone fragment. Lu Ming was the first to succeed. After Lu Ming succeeded, about half a minute had passed. Xiao Wuji had also succeeded, and after another half a minute, Ling Yue had succeeded. At this point, Lu Ming had already collected 2 undying fighting souls. In the end, Lu Ming collected 3 undying battle souls. Xiao Wuji also collected 3, and Ling Yue collected 2. The 8 undying fighting souls were divided among the 3 of them. Damn it! Xiao Wuji's eyes were cold as he stared at Lu Ming. Lu Ming's speed of collecting undying fighting souls was actually faster than his, which made him extremely unhappy. Now, without the undying fighting souls, let's see how you will die. Xiao Wuji's cold eyes stared at Lu Ming and Ling Yue. On the mountain peak, there were still many undying fighting souls that had not been collected by them. However, this was the peak of the mountain. The undying fighting souls on the mountainside were wandering around and did not come up. Therefore, the peak of the mountain was very spacious. Xiao Wuji, don't think that we are afraid of you. Ling Yue held the Elf King bow in her hand and was very confident. She was not afraid of Xiao Wuji. Kill! Xiao Wuji shouted and attacked directly, holding the half of the Azura Emperor sword. His body was covered in a dazzling bloody light. This was the power of the blood Azura. Xiao Wuji released the power of the blood Azura and resonated with the Azura Emperor sword. 1. The half of the Azura Emperor sword vibrated and sword chi whistled, piercing through the clouds. A few terrifying sword lights slashed towards Lu Ming and Ling Yue. Whoosh! Ling Yue drew her bow and an arrow. A towering tree appeared behind her. Endless energy was injected into her body. On the Elf King bow, an arrow condensed and flew out, piercing through the void. Boom! The arrow and the sword light collided, exploding into a shocking explosion. The arrow and the sword light shook continuously, and finally both disappeared. Lu Ming also drew out the energy from the Gale Pearl. The gale whistled and collided with the sword light that was slashing towards him. In the end, he successfully blocked it. What a strong power! Lu Ming's eyes narrowed slightly. Xiao Wuji's sword light, combined with the half of the Azura Emperor sword, was shockingly powerful. Both he and Ling Yue used their killing weapons to barely block it. Looks like Xiao Wuji has really evolved into a blood Azura. The power of the blood Azura complements the half of the Azura Emperor sword, allowing it to better display the power of the half of the Azura Emperor sword. Ling Yue said. Her delicate little face was also filled with seriousness. Xiao Wuji's strength was already monstrous. Now that he had turned into a blood Azura, he was undoubtedly even more terrifying. In the entire desolate universe, there were probably not many people who were a match for Xiao Wuji. Moreover, the power of the blood Azura could better activate the half of the Azura Emperor sword, making his strength even stronger. Kill! 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 Seeing that he had not killed Lu Ming and Ling Yue, Xiao Wuji's killing intent became even stronger. He kept roaring and slashed out with the half of the Azura Emperor sword. The dense sword light slashed towards Lu Ming and Ling Yue. Lu Ming and Ling Yue also activated their killing weapons to fight against the other party. The peak of the mountain trembled violently. However, this mountain was extraordinary. The intense battle between the 3 of them did not cause the slightest bit of damage to the mountain. The 2 weapons floated there quietly, emitting a treasure light. They were not affected at all. In the blink of an eye, the 3 of them had exchanged dozens of blows. The battle became more and more intense. The 3 of them activated their killing weapons to the extreme. In the end, the 3 killing weapons changed. First, Xiao Wuji's half of the Azura Emperor sword roared and turned into an Azura King with 99 heads and 999 arms. It charged through the air. The Elf King bow in Ling Yue's hand also turned into an Elf King in a dazzling light and went forward. At the same time, the zephyr pearl in Lu Ming's hand also turned into a figure. It was the figure of the owner of the zephyr pearl that Lu Ming had seen before. It had an impression of the Azura King and was fighting with each other. When the three killing weapons were activated to the extreme, they revealed their figures and fought with each other. Without external help, let's see how you die. Xiao Wuji let out a long roar. His long hair flew in the wind and blood radiance filled the air. A blood sword condensed in his hand. In a flash, he appeared in front of Lu Ming and slashed at Lu Ming. Chapter 3883. Xiao Wuji slashed at Lu Ming with his sword. Even though he only had the strength of the first godly emperor layer, his attack was terrifyingly powerful. His attack caused the air to explode. Sword chi whistled through the air and blood chi filled the air. A terrifying pressure pressed down on Lu Ming. Danger. Extremely dangerous. That attack was fatal to Lu Ming. Lu Ming instantly activated the battle word art. His fighting strength increased by 5 times. Every cell in his body trembled as he used all his ordinary secret skills. Of course, these secret skills were hidden. A layer of light appeared around his body. This light was made up of all sorts of defensive secret skills. A layer of light also appeared on his hands. It was made up of all sorts of offensive secret skills. At the same time, Lu Ming used the Great Godly Wind technique and the Great Shattering technique to throw out 2 punches. Boom, boom! Lu Ming's fists collided with Xiao Wuji's blood sword. There was an earth-shattering explosion. A terrifying force swept out in all directions and swallowed everything. In the next instant, a figure was pushed back. That figure was Lu Ming. His fists continued to explode. A terrifying sword chi broke through his secret skills and tried to tear his body apart. In the end, Lu Ming managed to block it. However, Lu Ming was pushed back 10,000 meters. There were 2 deep cuts on his fists. His fists had almost been torn apart. What a terrifying force! Lu Ming's expression was grave and he was secretly shocked. Xiao Wuji's strength was monstrous. He was definitely the most monstrous among all the geniuses he had met. In the previous exchange, Xiao Wuji's strength had torn apart all his defenses and almost split his fists apart. Even the taboo power had been torn apart by it. It didn't mean that his forbidden strength was weaker than Xiao Wuji's. It was just that Lu Ming's cultivation was much weaker than Xiao Wuji's. A quasi-emperor and a godly emperor were on 2 completely different levels. Furthermore, Xiao Wuji's blood Shura strength was also a terrifying force. It was normal for Xiao Wuji to be able to break through his forbidden strength. If the quality was good, it had to be sufficient. If the quantity was insufficient, it would be useless. What he didn't know was that Xiao Wuji was even more shocked and unable to accept it. How is this possible? How can a mere quasi-emperor block my attack and not die? How can a quasi-emperor block my attack? Xiao Wuji was in disbelief and could not accept it. Ever since he had evolved into Blood Shura, he had believed that there were only a handful of people of the same level in the desolate universe who could fight him, even among the top 10 tribes. Not to mention those whose cultivation levels were lower. Xiao Wuji's cultivation. Wu Ji's Shura Ji. There was such a huge difference between their cultivation bases, but Lin Fan was still able to block his attack. Although he had the upper hand, he still couldn't accept it. This was a huge blow to his belief of being invincible. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. Kid, go to hell. Go to hell. Xiao Wuji roared crazily. His blood Shura strength was unleashed to the extreme. With a swoosh, he turned into a blood-red sword light and slashed at Lu Ming again. This time, it was even stronger than before. But at this moment, Ling Yue had already made her move. She used all her strength and shot an arrow. The arrow pierced through the air. It was terrifying as it flew towards Xiao Wuji's face. Ling Yue was also a monstrous genius. After breaking through to the godly emperor realm, her strength was also very shocking. She was enough to pose a fatal threat to Xiao Wuji. Therefore, he could only stop and wave his sword to block Ling Yue's attack. With a clang, Ling Yue's arrow was sent flying by him. With this block, Lu Ming had recovered. The wound on his fist had already recovered. At the same time, through his continuous efforts, he had finally triggered the battle character incantation to increase his combat strength by 6 times. After triggering 6 times of combat strength, Lu Ming's strength was at its peak. Boom! 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 Lu Ming continued to throw punches. The void was destroyed. A terrifying fist energy was sent towards Xiao Wuji. I am the Blood Shura. I am invincible among those of the same level. Die, brat! Xiao Wuji roared and slashed with his sword. The sharp sword light easily sliced apart Lu Ming's fist energy. Even though Lu Ming had triggered the battle character incantation to increase his combat strength by 6 times, he was still no match for Xiao Wuji. Xiao Wuji was truly terrifying. Among those of the same level, he was already standing at the peak of the primitive universe. Even among the top 10 races, there were not many who could match up to Xiao Wuji. Such an existence was truly terrifying. It was too difficult for Lu Ming to cross realms to fight. The difference between a quasi-emperor and a godly emperor was too great. Under the circumstances where one's cultivation was so far behind, it was normal for one to lose. Fortunately, with Ling Yue's help, Ling Yue continued to draw her bow and shoot arrows at Xiao Wuji. However, Ling Yue was also no match for Xiao Wuji. Ling Yue and Xiao Wuji were of the same level. In the past, Ling Yue was slightly behind her opponent. After her opponent turned into a blood shura, she was even weaker. Xiao Wuji continued to attack, breaking apart Lu Ming and Ling Yue's attacks. He kept getting closer to Lu Ming. Brat, no one can save you today. Die! Xiao Wuji roared. His killing intent was at its peak. He wanted to kill Lu Ming. It was because of jealousy. Lu Ming was able to fight against him at the quasi-emperor level. He was too monstrous. If Lu Ming broke through to the godly emperor level, he would definitely be stronger than him. He would not allow such an existence to appear. He wanted to kill him in the cradle. Lu Ming's existence was a huge blow to his invincible belief. You want to kill me? I'm going to disappoint you. I was just testing the strength of your blood shura. I'm not going to play with you anymore, said Lu Ming indifferently. Then Qiu continued to wriggle on his wrist and turned into an armor. Lu Ming also had Qiu apart from the Zephyr Pearl. Qiu had already broken through to the 3rd godly emperor layer. After turning into a silver spear, it was terrifyingly strong. Even if Xiao Wuji was incredible, Qiu could still defeat him. A silver spear appeared in Lu Ming's hand. Whoosh! The spear shook violently and collided with Xiao Wuji's blood-red sword. There was an explosion. Xiao Wuji's blood-red sword was shaking violently. Great godly wind technique, great destruction technique. Lu Ming threw a punch with his left hand. 2 deadly attacks turned into a hurricane and swept towards Xiao Wuji. Xiao Wuji's body shook violently. The blood shura protecting his body shook violently. Lu Ming's strength penetrated into his body. Xiao Wuji was pushed back and his face turned pale. Lu Ming didn't give him any time to breathe. His silver spear stabbed again. At the same time, his left hand also attacked. Ling Yue also seized the opportunity and shot an arrow with all her strength. Chapter 3884. Lu Ming and Ling Yue joined forces to launch their strongest attack. Afterward, it was mainly due to the cooperation of Qiu that Xiao Wuji finally could not withstand it. He snorted and retreated while coughing blood. However, he was strong enough. Qiu was at the 3rd godly emperor layer and could kill ordinary cultivators at the 5th godly emperor layer. Besides, Lu Ming and Ling Yue were only injured. However, this was only one move. If they continued fighting, he would die. Xiao Wuji understood this. Ah, damn it, damn it! Xiao Wuji roared madly in his heart. His gaze swept across the two divine weapons. In a flash, he pounced towards the two divine weapons. He wasn't a match for Lu Ming and Ling Yue. He knew that it was impossible to kill Lu Ming and Ling Yue. Therefore, he wanted to get the two weapons. However, Lu Ming and Ling Yue would not let him have his way. Another wave of attacks was directed at Xiao Wuji, blocking his way forward. Pooh! This time, Xiao Wuji's body was pierced by a silver spear. He flew a few thousand meters away and coughed up blood. Damn it! Damn it! Xiao Wuji roared. His eyes were filled with unwillingness and killing intent. In the end, he gritted his teeth and turned around to leave. He rushed out of the mountain and into the undying fighting souls. In the midst of the fighting souls, Lu Ming and the rest could not attack him. This was because their attacks would be blocked by the undying fighting souls. Lu Ming and Ling Yue thought it was a pity that they couldn't kill Xiao Wuji. In the sky, the three killing machines were still engaged in an intense battle. However, their attention was immediately attracted by the two weapons. Two weapons, one for each of us. How about it? Ling Yue looked at Lu Ming. Her eyes were somewhat perturbed. Now, Lu Ming had Qiu Qiu's help. He was stronger than her. Would Lu Ming give her one of the weapons? It was very likely that it was one of the 18 weapons of the Heavenly Court. It was extremely precious. All right, one for each of you. Lu Ming smiled. Ling Yue's eyes revealed a look of pleasant surprise. The way she looked at Lu Ming changed again. To be honest, along the way, Lu Ming had given her too many surprises. She had never expected her fiancé to be so outstanding that it was ridiculous. He was more outstanding than any of the prodigies she had ever seen. Was this the trash that her father or her clansmen spoke of? Not good enough for her? This was ridiculous. Given Lu Ming's talent, there was no woman in the world that he was not worthy of. Ling Yue suddenly felt a little fortunate in her heart. She was glad that she had come to find Lu Ming this time and discovered the shocking side of Lu Ming. She's going to get married anyway. Instead of marrying that playboy from the angel race, why not marry him? Hee. Thoughts flashed through Ling Yue's mind. Lu Ming did not know that Ling Yue had so many thoughts in that instant. After replying, he pounced towards one of the divine armament S. It was the snow-white staff. In the blink of an eye, Lu Ming appeared beside the snow-white staff without any hindrance. Lu Ming grabbed the end of the snow-white staff, wanting to put it away. However, the snow-white staff did not move at all. Why can't I put it away? Take it, Lu Ming shouted, but he still couldn't put it away. Moreover, the long staff began to tremble violently, as if it had an unyielding will. It didn't want to submit to Lu Ming, and it didn't want to be taken away. How can a divine armament of this level be so easy to put away? You need to suppress him, condense him, and obtain his approval. Then use your taboo power. The bone demon sent a sound transmission to Lu Ming. Lu Ming nodded. In the next moment, a boundless taboo power surged towards the long staff. When the taboo power was released, the vibration of the long staff suddenly weakened. It's effective. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. It's normal that it's effective. It's abnormal that it's ineffective. This is taboo power, the top power in the universe. If you don't approve of it, what else can you approve of? The bone demon said. Lu Ming focused his attention and continued to inject the taboo power, wanting to completely subdue the long staff. On the other side, Ling Yue seemed to be in big trouble. She held one end of the saber, but the saber was constantly trembling. Buzz! In the end, the saber shook violently, and a terrifying saber intent was emitted. Ling Yue's body shook violently, and she was directly sent flying. Her face turned pale, and she spat out a mouthful of blood. She couldn't subdue this saber. Ha ha ha. Ling Yue, you want to take this saber? Dream on, this saber is mine. At this moment, Xiao Wuji rushed out again and rushed towards the saber. He saw that Lu Ming couldn't make a move now, so he wanted to take the opportunity to take the saber into his bag. Xiao Wuji grabbed the hilt of the saber, but the saber was also shaking violently. You still want to resist under my blood Shura power? Suppress! Xiao Wuji shouted, and his body shone brightly. The dazzling blood-red light completely enveloped the saber. The vibrations of the saber suddenly lessened. From this, it could be seen that the power of the blood Shura was also very shocking. Humph, you want to take the divine weapon. Have you asked me? Ling Yue said unhappily and continued to shoot at Xiao Wuji. Xiao Wuji was using all his strength to suppress the saber and couldn't spare any energy to resist. He was instantly hit by an arrow and spat out a large mouthful of blood. Ling Yue continued to draw her bow, continuously shooting arrows at Xiao Wuji. You're courting death. Xiao Wuji shouted angrily and retracted the power of suppressing the saber. He turned it into a blood sword and slashed out continuously, knocking away Ling Yue's arrows. However, the moment he retracted his power and lost the suppression of the blood Shura power, the saber began to shake violently again. Damn it, damn it! Xiao Wuji was furious and could only continue to suppress the saber. However, as he continued to suppress the saber, Ling Yue attacked him again, making him extremely angry and anxious. If this continued, if Lu Ming subdued the staff before him and freed up his hands to deal with him, then he could forget about getting the saber. I'm going to kill you. Xiao Wuji roared, and his killing intent soared. He simply abandoned the saber and rushed towards Ling Yue, wanting to kill her. However, Ling Yue directly escaped into the undying fighting soul. Xiao Wuji's evil guts rose, and he rushed towards Lu Ming, wanting to kill Lu Ming while Lu Ming was suppressing the staff. You're courting death. Qiu, go and finish him. Lu Ming waved his hand, and Qiu flew out, turning into a silver spear and attacking Xiao Wuji. Xiao Wuji was no match for Qiu. After a few moves, he was swept away by Qiu, and he coughed out large mouthfuls of blood. Xiao Wuji was about to go crazy, being chased by Qiu. However, at this moment, Lu Ming suddenly felt a terrifying sense of danger enveloping him, causing all the hair on his body to stand on end. Whoosh! Behind Lu Ming, a bright sword light pierced towards Lu Ming. Chapter 3885. Behind Lu Ming, a dazzling sword radiance shot towards Lu Ming. Sharp, fast, and terrifying. Such a sudden and terrifying sword radiance. If it was an ordinary person, he would not be able to block it, as he would not be able to do so in time. However, Lu Ming was not an ordinary person. He had a forbidden body. Every cell in his body contained powerful energy, and he could attack from every part of his body. Boom! Lu Ming's back and the back of his head suddenly shone brightly. The forbidden body was activated, and many defensive and offensive secret skills were unleashed. Just as Lu Ming was prepared, the sword radiance slashed onto Lu Ming's body, and there was a loud explosion. Lu Ming felt that the secret skills that he had unleashed were being broken apart by the sword radiance. In the end, a terrifying force slashed onto Lu Ming's body and left a deep wound on his back. Piercing pain spread throughout his body. Not far away, Qiu was shocked. He did not care about killing Xiao Wuji. He turned into a spear radiance and quickly flew towards Lu Ming. At this moment, Lu Ming finally saw who had sneaked an attack on him from behind. Looking at the figure, Lu Ming's eyes were filled with surprise. Di Jiani. The person who had attacked him was actually Di Jiani. Di Jiani was in a white robe, and he was walking towards Su Mo. Those undying fighting souls did not attack him, as he also had a vitality stone fragment in his hand. There was another person beside Di Jiani. It was a lady who was extremely beautiful. Lu Ming also knew this lady. Dark night rose. Lu Ming was really shocked. He was very surprised. Firstly, he was surprised as to why Di, Jenny, and Dark Knight Rose were walking together. Furthermore, why would Di, Jenny, and Dark Knight Rose appear here? It seemed that the two of them had vitality stone fragments. Otherwise, they would not have been able to climb up the mountain. Di, Jenny's gaze was like a sword, and a powerful sword essence locked onto Lu Ming as if he would attack at any moment. Besides, his chi was terrifying. He had broken through to the first godly emperor layer. Come to think of it, during this period of time, Di Jinni had also obtained many miraculous encounters. Otherwise, his cultivation would not have increased so quickly. With a whoosh, Qiu flew back to Lu Ming's side and transformed into an armor that enveloped Lu Ming. Lu Ming felt slightly more at ease. "You're finally here." Seeing Dark Night Rose and Di Jinni, Xiao Wuji seemed to be very happy. He also secretly heaved a sigh of relief. This made Lu Ming frown. Could it be that Xiao Wuji knew Dark Night Rose and Di Jinni? "If we don't come, I'm afraid you won't be able to get anything. You were very confident when you swore Dandan in front of me," Dark Night Rose said, her voice full of charm. Xiao Wuji's face flushed red, revealing a tinge of awkwardness. He then swept his cold gaze toward Lu Ming and said, "This time I miscalculated. I didn't expect this lad to be so difficult to deal with. He is indeed difficult to deal with. I did not expect there to be such a genius in the universe." Dark Night Rose also looked at Lu Ming, her eyes flashing with an inexplicable radiance. She and Di Jinni naturally did not know Lu Ming. Lu Ming was now in a forbidden land. His life source had already changed. They completely treated Lu Ming as a stranger. "You go and collect that war blade. Leave these two to us," Dark Night Rose said to Xiao Wuji. Her tone had a faint commanding tone. What was surprising was that although Dark Night Rose's tone had a tinge of command, with Xiao Wuji's arrogance, he was not angry or scolded. Instead, he looked as if it was a matter of course. Xiao Wuji nodded and charged towards the war blade. Don't even think about it. Ling Yue would not let her opponent succeed so easily. She drew her bow and shot a few more arrows towards Xiao Wuji. However, this time, Xiao Wuji did not care. It was as if he did not see the arrows and directly ignored them. "Little girl, don't be too hot-tempered." Dark Night Rose smiled. She stretched out a jade-like hand and pressed it in the air. Immediately, a strange ripple spread out, and then black flowers appeared in the air. This was a rose flower, and the moment the rose flower appeared, it easily blocked the arrow shot by Ling Yue. "Leave him to me." At this moment, Di Jinni spoke. His voice was indifferent, as if he was an emotionless divine sword. His gaze was always on Lu Ming. He did not know why, but although he did not know Lu Ming, when he saw Lu Ming, there was an inexplicable hostility in his heart. It was as if Lu Ming was his mortal enemy, and he had to get rid of Lu Ming. Otherwise, in the future, he would be killed by Lu Ming. This was an inexplicable thought. It came out of nowhere, and there was no reason for it. However, this thought made Di Jinni very unhappy. He was restless and could not wait to get rid of Lu Ming. "Make your move." Dark Night Rose nodded. Clang! The sound of a sword chime could be heard. A dazzling sword light burst out from Di Jinni's hand and pierced towards Lu Ming. There was no doubt that Di Jinni had become even scarier after not seeing him for a period of time. He was much scarier than when he had fought with Lu Ming. Lu Ming could feel at the moment Di Jinni made his move. Di Jinni's sword aura was exceptionally sharp and unparalleled. In a battle of the same level, it was actually not weaker than Xiao Wuji, who had turned into blood azura. This was extremely shocking. "Qiu." Lu Ming waved his hand and Qiu flew out. Now he was suppressing the long rod divine weapon with all his strength and could not spare any energy to fight against Di Jinni. He could only let Qiu make his move. Qiu flew out and turned into a silver spear. It pierced out and destroyed Di Jenny's sword light. Then the spear light did not stop and continued to stab towards Di Jenny. Di Jenny's expression changed. He quickly retreated and turned into a sword light. He kept changing his position in the air. In an instant, he had changed at least a few hundred positions. Only then did he avoid the attack of the silver spearlight. Do you think you can stop me with just a metallic life form? Di Jenny's eyes were cold. A long sword flew out from between his eyebrows. This was an ancient sword. It looked very old and worn out. The surface of the sword was dented and full of holes. However, a terrifying sword essence was emitted from the ancient sword. This was a terrifying weapon of mass destruction. Swoosh! A beam of sword gleam burst forth from the ancient sword and slashed the silver spear that Chochio had transformed into. The silver spear that Chochio had transformed into vibrated violently and was sent flying back to Lu Ming's side. Painful, painful. Chochio cried out. A hole appeared on its body, and it could not be healed in a short period of time. Lu Ming's expression was grave. Di Jenny had taken out such a killing weapon that was not weaker than the Elven King, Bao, and Gale Pearl. Bam! Di Jenny took a step forward and continued to walk towards Lu Ming. Gale Pearl, come back! Lu Ming roared and activated the great God Wind skill. In the sky, the human figure that was formed by the Gale Pearl gave off a dazzling radiance. Then it turned back into the Gale Pearl and flew back to Lu Ming's hand. Chapter 3886. Lu Ming recalled the Gale Pearl, and the confrontation in the sky was broken. Half of the Shura Emperor sword turned back into half a sword and flew back into Xiao Wuji's body. The Elven King, Bao, also returned to Ling Yue's side. Ling Yue's figure flashed and came to Lu Ming's side. Lu Ming activated the power of the Gale Pearl, and a gale swept towards Di Jenny. As for Ling Yue, she activated the Elf King's bow that was stained with blood and shot a terrifying arrow towards the Dark Knight Rose. You want to deal with me with a broken weapon? Dark Knight Rose had a faint smile on her face. She pinched the air with her fingers, and a petal appeared on her fingertips. It was a pitch-black petal. The petal emitted a terrifying fluctuation and flew out, turning into a dazzling divine light. It collided with Ling Yue's arrow and successfully blocked Ling Yue's attack. At the same time, Di Jenny took a step in the air. Sword Qi soared into the sky, and a terrifying sword light slashed towards Lu Ming. It fought against the strong gale and rumbled continuously. However, Lu Ming controlled the Gale Pearl with all his strength, so he had no choice but to let go of the suppression of the long staff weapon. The long staff weapon shook violently, as if it wanted to shake Lu Ming away. Lu Ming barely managed to stabilize himself. You want to split your attention to fight against me and still want to suppress the divine weapon? What a joke! The Emperor's sword snorted coldly, and the sword gleam surged once again. Dazzling sword gleams came one after another, slashing toward Lu Ming with overwhelming momentum. Di Jenny's strength was extremely terrifying. Coupled with this ancient sword, its power was even more terrifying. It was as if Xiao Wuji was controlling half of the Shura Emperor sword. Lu Ming could only fight with all his strength. On the other side, Dark Knight Rose was even more terrifying. With just a petal, she was able to suppress Ling Yue. This surprised Lu Ming. What's going on with this Dark Knight Rose? How did she become so terrifying? Lu Ming was bewildered. Dark Knight Rose was just the daughter of an ordinary demon king in the Chu Tian Star zone of the Taishu dynasty. She was nothing in the primitive universe. However, Lu Ming had a deep impression of Dark Knight Rose. When they met for the first time, he felt that Dark Knight Rose was very dangerous and gave him a sense of crisis. But this time, Dark Knight Rose was even more unfathomable. Not only was her power terrifying, but even demons like Di Jenny and Xiao Wuji had to listen to her orders. This made Anya Rose even more mysterious. As they fought, Ling Yue was completely suppressed. She could only barely resist, and the situation was somewhat dangerous. Whoosh! Suddenly, the Dark Knight Rose raised her hand, and a sharp divine light shot toward Lu Ming. It broke through the wind and headed straight for Lu Ming. Lu Ming hurriedly brandished the silver spear that Qiu had transformed into to block the attack. Don't be stubborn. The two of you hand over the life, spirit, vitality stone fragments. Then swear on your life source that if you work for me in the future, I can spare your lives. Dark Knight Rose said. She actually wanted to subdue Lu Ming and Ling Yue for her use. However, how could Lu Ming agree? Do you really think that you can take us down? If you push us too far, we'll just die together. This gale pearl of mine contains a terrifying gale. Once it explodes, it can destroy a galaxy. Once I self-destruct, we'll all die. Lu Ming said coldly. Forbidden power surged into the gale pearl, causing it to flicker as if it was really going to explode. In fact, Lu Ming was just scaring them. He really did not have the ability to detonate the gale pearl. However, Dark Knight Rose and Di Jinny did not know this. They were really scared. They could not help but stop their actions and prepare to defend themselves. Dark Knight Rose stared at the gale pearl in Lu Ming's hand. Her eyes filled with bewilderment. I don't believe that you will detonate your gale pearl. Dark Knight Rose said. Is that so? Lu Ming's eyes flashed with viciousness. Forbidden power was injected, causing the light on the gale pearl to flicker even more. Dark Knight Rose and Di Jinny were shocked. They subconsciously took a few steps back, distancing themselves from Lu Ming. For a moment, the two sides were in a standoff. What's your name? Dark Knight Rose suddenly asked with a smile. She looked extremely charming. Lu Ming's eyes flickered a few times. He did not know the purpose of the other party's question, but he did not care. He answered truthfully, Mu Yin. So you're Mu Yin. I know you, the fiancé of the elf princess Ling Yue. It seems that you two are really together. You're really a match made in heaven. Dark Knight Rose continued to smile. What do you want to say? Just say it, Lu Ming said. He didn't think that the other party's purpose was to flatter him. I'll tell you the truth. I've created a force called the Huiying Alliance. It means to gather all the heroes in the world. Now, many heroes have joined the Huiying Alliance. They are all the top geniuses in the universe. Our goal is to create a powerful force that can rival the Heavenly Palace in the future. Our name will shake the universe and will be immortal, benefiting billions of people. The talents of the two of you are completely in line with the standards of the Huiying Alliance. How about joining us and working together? Dark Knight Rose said. Hearing this, Lu Ming and Ling Yue were shocked. The other party had actually created a force called the Huiying Alliance. They wanted to gather all the heroes in the world and become a force comparable to the Heavenly Palace. What great courage and ambition! If someone else had said this, Lu Ming would have laughed in disdain. But now Lu Ming could not laugh. Needless to say, Di Jinny and Xiao Wuji were both from the Huiying Alliance. Not to mention the others, just the Dark Knight Rose, Di Jinny and Xiao Wuji were all the top geniuses in the universe. Each of them was terrifyingly powerful and talented. If the Huiying Alliance had more of such geniuses, it would be very shocking. When they grew up in the future, they would definitely be very terrifying. It might be too exaggerated to say that it was comparable to the Heavenly Palace, but it would definitely be able to create a very terrifying force. As for benefiting billions of people, Lu Ming sneered. The other party was just saying it for his own selfish reasons. However, Lu Ming could not figure out how the Dark Knight Rose was so powerful that she could gather so many geniuses. Seeing that Lu Ming and Ling Yue were silent, the Dark Knight Rose thought that the two of them were moved and said, How is it? In the Huiying Alliance, there are many top geniuses. This way, everyone can supervise each other and spar with each other. Their improvement is also the fastest. When everyone grows up, it won't be difficult to create another life spirit heavenly court. Especially Brother Muyin. With your talent, if you join the Hueying Alliance, I can give you the position of Deputy Alliance Leader. How about it? The Dark Knight Rose continued to increase the chips. Chapter 3887. Dark Knight Rose promised the position of Vice Leader and continued to increase the stakes, trying to attract Lu Ming to join. But Lu Ming was not interested at all. I'm sorry, but I'm not interested. Also, I think that the Heavenly Palace will not allow a force like the Hueying Alliance to develop. Lu Ming smiled faintly. The Heavenly Palace ruled the primitive universe. How could they let a force that could challenge them appear? If they found out, they would definitely extinguish it. Even without the Heavenly Palace, Lu Ming would not join. If he wanted to build a force, why not do it himself? Why did he have to rely on others? This was not Lu Ming's style. Mu Yan's meaning is my meaning. I'm not interested either. Ling Yue also rejected. Hearing Lu Ming and Ling Yue's rejection, Dark Knight Rose's gaze turned cold. You refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Do you really think that you can scare me with a bead? I don't believe that you will really detonate it. Moreover, whether you can detonate it is still a question. Dark Knight Rose said coldly. Her eyes flashed with wisdom as if she could see through everything. Lu Ming's heart trembled. This Dark Knight Rose was really difficult to deal with. Her wisdom was not to be underestimated. She did not seem like a young person at all. Instead, she seemed like an old monster that had lived for countless years. Indeed, Lu Ming could not detonate the Gale bead. And even if he could, Lu Ming would not detonate it and really die together with the other party. Collect! At this moment, Xiao Wuji shouted loudly. The bloody light on his body surged. The war blade in his hand buzzed and vibrated nonstop. Then, the vibration quickly weakened. Finally, it turned into a ray of light and was absorbed into Xiao Wuji's body. While Lu Ming was confronting Dark Knight Rose and the others, Xiao Wuji used the power of the Blood Shura to suppress the war blade. He finally succeeded in subduing it. Ha ha ha. After subduing the battle saber, Xiao Wuji let out a long laugh. He was very carefree. Then he swept his gaze toward Lu Ming with a ferocious expression. He took a step forward and appeared beside Dark Knight Rose and the rest. He formed a horn-like formation and surrounded Lu Ming and Ling Yue. What's the point of talking so much nonsense with them? They're so stubborn that it's useless to recruit them into the Hueying Alliance. Xiao Wuji said savagely, his killing intent becoming even colder. I've already given you a chance, but you don't know how to cherish it. Then I can only send you on your way. Dark Knight Rose said coldly. The black petal reappeared in her hand. Whoosh! The black petal turned into a jet of black divine light and shot towards Lu Ming. At the same time, Di Jenny activated the ancient sword and charged towards Lu Ming. Xiao Wuji controlled the remaining half of the Azura Emperor sword. The three of them unleashed their killing weapons at the same time, unleashing a terrifying attack. Lu Ming and Ling Yue didn't dare to be careless and retaliated with all their might. Ling Yue activated the Elven Royal Bow and shot an arrow. The arrow collided with the petals of the Dark Knight Rose, erupting with an earth-shattering boom. However, the outcome was that the arrow shot by Ling Yue was defeated, while the petals only weakened a little and continued to fly toward Lu Ming. At the same time, two terrifying sword lights flew towards Lu Ming. Lu Ming activated the energy within the Gale Pearl with all his might. A terrifying storm formed a wall of wind to block their attacks. Boom! 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 As the petals of Dark Knight Rose were weakened, they weren't powerful enough and were blocked by the Gale Wall. However, the sword gleams of Emperor Jenny and Xiao Wuji were unusually terrifying. They bombarded the wall of Gale and constantly tore it apart. In the end, They completely broke through the gale and continued to slash toward Lu Ming with the remaining power. "Block!" Lu Ming shouted. He held the silver spear that Chiu Chiu had transformed into and stabbed out with all his might. Whoosh! Whoosh! 2 silver spear lights and 2 sword lights fiercely collided with each other. A dazzling light appeared and energy overflowed. Lu Ming felt 2 incomparably sharp sword intents breaking through the silver spear lights and surging towards his body. Di Jianyi and Xiu Wuji had used their trump cards. They were too strong, and their strength had far surpassed Chiu Chiu's. Lu Ming retreated, but there were still a few sword wounds on his body that went straight to his bones. Moreover, these sword qi were filled with destructive power. They crazily exploded in Lu Ming's body, wanting to tear apart Lu Ming's body. However, every cell in Lu Ming's body contained powerful energy. "Suppress!" Lu Ming shouted in his heart. His cells trembled and waves of taboo energy exploded, finally suppressing the sword qi. "Mu Yin, how are you?" Ling Yue asked with concern. "Fortunately, I'm fine." Lu Ming took a deep breath and said, "What should we do next?" Ling Yue asked again. At that moment, Ling Yue had lost her mind and was a little panicked, because the 3 young men in front of her were too terrifying. It seemed like the 3 of them were at the first godly emperor layer, the same level as her. However, each of them was stronger than her. Besides, each of them had a trump card. If the 3 of them joined forces, she and Lu Ming wouldn't be able to defeat them. If this continued, they would be in danger. "Mu Yin, with your talent, it's a pity to get rid of you. However, you're stubborn, just like a guy I met before. I can only get rid of you. Die!" shouted the Dark Night Rose. She was surrounded by a strange black light. The flower in her hand was releasing a terrifying qi. A dazzling light moved towards Lu Ming. At the same time, Di Jianyi and Xiu Wuji also attacked. They were both filled with murderous qi. Their sword lights were terrifying to the extreme. Ling Yue used all her strength to pull the royal elf bow, but it was still broken by the Dark Night Rose's attack. A few attacks instantly approached Lu Ming, but this time Lu Ming didn't activate the power of the Zephyr Pearl. He just stood there motionlessly. "Mu Yin, quickly fight back. Quickly fight back," shouted Ling Yue. However, Lu Ming still didn't activate the power of the Zephyr Pearl. "Die!" shouted Xiu Wuji. His eyes were filled with murderous qi. Di Jianyi didn't say anything, but the light in his eyes was incomparably resplendent, like 2 divine swords. Their attacks were about to reach Lu Ming's body. At that moment, Lu Ming moved. He didn't activate the Zephyr Pearl. Instead, he suddenly waved the staff in his left hand. His left hand had always been holding the staff. At that moment, he suddenly waved it and the air exploded. A violent qi whistled through the air, bringing with it a terrifying coldness. It swept in all directions. Dang! 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 There were a few consecutive sounds of metal clashing. The divine weapon staff accurately struck a few of the sword lights. Whong! The staff let out a buzzing sound like a big bell. A few sword lights were also defeated, turning into energy and disappearing. The attacks from the Dark Night Rose, Di Jianyi, and Xiu Wuji were all blocked. Chapter 3888. Lu Ming waved the long staff weapon and blocked the attacks of Di Jianyi and the rest. Moreover, there was a terrifying chill that spread out from the long staff weapon and surged towards Di Jianyi and the rest. The ancient sword in Di Jianyi's hand and the half of the Azura Emperor sword in Xiu Wuji's hand were covered by a layer of frost and revealed a bone-piercing chill. Even the petals of Dark Night Rose that were dancing in the air were covered by a layer of frost. The few of them retreated and continuously activated their divine power to repel the frost on the weapons. How is this possible? How are you able to use this divine weapon now? Xiu Wuji shouted in disbelief. They could already determine that these two weapons were two of the 18 palace garrison divine weapons under the life spirit heavenly court. Such a divine weapon was not to be underestimated. It would be difficult to subdue it. He had used all his strength and the power of blood azura to barely subdue it. However, he could not use it at all and could only keep it reluctantly. If he wanted to use it, he would need to spend a large amount of time to refine it. However, when Lu Ming was attacked by them, not only did he successfully subdue the long staff weapon, but he was also able to use it on the spot and display some of its power. How was this possible? No wonder Xiao Wuji shouted in disbelief. Dark Night rose and Di Jianyi's pupils constricted and they were shocked. If you can't do it, it doesn't mean that others can't do it. It only means that you can't do it. Lu Ming said indifferently as he held the snow-white long staff weapon in his hand and gave off an invincible aura. What did you say? I can't do it? I don't believe that you can use it. I don't believe that you can. Kill! Xiao Wuji shouted as if he had gone mad and charged towards Lu Ming again. Today, Lu Ming had given him too many blows. He was so jealous of Lu Ming that he was about to go crazy. His killing intent towards Lu Ming was also extremely strong, and he was about to lose his mind. When Xiao Wuji moved, Dark Night rose and Di Jinyi also moved. They also charged towards Lu Ming and unleashed terrifying attacks. At the side, Ling Yue drew her bow and arrow, wanting to attack, but Lu Ming stopped her. You don't have to do anything. Leave the rest to me. Lu Ming smiled faintly. With a shake of his arm, the staff shot through the air and rapidly grew in size until it was like a mountain, sweeping through the world. Boom! Heaven and earth boiled as the violent force crushed toward Anya Rose and the other two. At the same time, there was an incomparably terrifying chill in the energy. Everywhere it passed, it was as if everything was about to be frozen. Dark Night rose and the other two's attacks collided with the long staff, creating a terrifying explosion, following which the divine light and the two sword radiances collapsed at the same time. The violent energy caused Dark Night rose and the other two to retreat once again. This time, the trio's faces turned incredibly unpleasant. Even a fool could see that Lu Ming could indeed control the long staff. Damn it, how could this be? Xiao Wuji continued to roar. The truth was right in front of his eyes. He had no choice but to believe it. Boom! Lu Ming held the long staff and looked like an invincible battle god. He took a step forward and his chi soared to the sky. Dark Night rose, and the other two couldn't help but take a step back. They were intimidated by Lu Ming's chi. It seems like the three of you won't be able to kill me today. Lu Ming smiled faintly, but he looked invincible. Even if you can control the long staff, how many attacks can you make? Can you withstand it with your strength? Dark Night rose, asked tentatively. Then you can try. Lu Ming smiled and continued. Furthermore, given your cultivation level, how many moves can you unleash when you activate such a powerful killing weapon? At that time, we won't know who will kill who. Indeed, Dark Night rose, and the other two were only at the first godly emperor layer. It was very difficult for them to control such a weapon. For example, Ling Yue was already sweating profusely. Her chi was unstable, and she was a little weak. When she was at the quasi-emperor layer, she could only shoot one arrow with her bloody elven royal bow. Even if she broke through to the first godly emperor layer and her strength increased, she couldn't use it indefinitely. After breaking through to the first godly emperor layer, the power of the arrows increased greatly. At the same time, the consumption of energy also increased greatly. She couldn't use many attacks. Dark Night rose. Di Jianyi and Xiao Wuji were the same. They couldn't use many attacks. Between them and Lu Ming, who would be the first to give up? Who knew? If they couldn't hold on, it would be troublesome because Lu Ming had a very strong metallic creature. Dark Night rose, and the others' eyes were twinkling. They already wanted to retreat. Mu Yin, I admit that you're really strong. How about this? Let's cooperate. You're qualified to cooperate with us. Let's explore the life spirit heavenly court together and find the treasures there. What do you think? Dark Night Rose said. Before, she wanted Lu Ming to join her and join the Huiying alliance. But now, she wanted to cooperate with Lu Ming. Unknowingly, she had already retreated and placed Lu Ming on the same level. Lu Ming smiled faintly. This was within his expectations, because he and Ling Yue both had life spirit origin stone fragments in their hands. If Dark Night Rose and the others wanted to continue exploring the life spirit heavenly court, they had to have life spirit origin stone fragments. The more, the better. Otherwise, they would snatch them from their hands. This was their initial plan, but now they had no choice but to change their plans. Cooperating with Lu Ming and the others was the best choice. We can cooperate, but we have to act separately. If you have any news, you can inform us at any time, and then we can investigate together. Lu Ming said with a harmless smile on his face. However, Dark Night Rose and the others gritted their teeth in anger. Damn it! What did Lu Ming mean? He wanted them to work hard and find clues about the life spirit heavenly court. For example, clues about the other life spirit palace. After they found them, they would inform him. Lu Ming wanted to obtain benefits without expending any effort. How could they not be angry? Mu Yin, aren't you going overboard? Are you treating us as free labor? Dark Night Rose said. Then we don't have to cooperate. Anyway, I'm already satisfied with this divine weapon. I don't have much ambition. Please go ahead. Lu Ming said indifferently. You! Dark Night Rose and Xiaowuji were so angry that their faces turned black. Di Jinny's eyes shone brightly as if he was about to attack at any time. However, no matter how angry they were, there was nothing they could do. They couldn't kill Lu Ming. What could they do? Good, very good. Leave your contact details. We can contact each other at any time. Dark Night Rose's gaze turned and revealed a smile. This made Lu Ming think that this woman was terrifying. Lu Ming immediately left the contact details of the illusory sacred jade. I hope we can cooperate happily in the future. In the end, Dark Night Rose smiled and left with Di Jinny and Xiaowuji. Chapter 3889. Dark Night Rose and the other two left. Before leaving, Di Jinny took a deep look at Lu Ming, and a trace of doubt flashed in his eyes. He had always felt that Lu Ming's temperament was very similar to that of a person, a life and death enemy of his. However, the life source aura of the two were completely different. They shouldn't be the same person. With doubts, Di Jinny and the others left. Whoosh! After Dark Night Rose, Di Jinny, and the others left, Lu Ming let out a long breath. His aura rapidly weakened. The consumption of this divine weapon is really great. Lu Ming sighed and hurriedly put away the long rod divine weapon. To be honest, he could only barely use a few moves just now. After all, he had just subdued the long rod divine weapon and had yet to refine it. The reason why he could use it was all because of the profoundness of the taboo power. However, the consumption of such a divine weapon was too great. Even if it was a taboo body, the consumption of energy after using it a few times just now was extremely shocking. Lu Ming was almost unable to hold on. Fortunately, Dark Night Rose and the others were scared away in the end. Mu Yin, are you all right? Ling Yue asked with concern. I'm fine. We can't stay here for long. Let's leave quickly. Lu Ming said. Ling Yue nodded. The two of them turned into two streaks of light and headed in the opposite direction of Dark Night Rose and the other two. Mu Yin, how are you so sure that Dark Night Rose will cooperate with us? On the way, Ling Yue asked curiously. Dark Night Rose's ambition is very great. She wants to create a force comparable to the Heavenly Palace. It can be said that her heart is higher than the sky. However, to create such a force, the resources needed are extremely terrifying. Therefore, the resources of the life spirit heavenly court are too important to them. And in our hands we have a few pieces of life spirit origin stone fragments. If they want to investigate the life spirit heavenly court in the future, they will need a lot of life spirit origin stone fragments. Unless they collect enough life spirit origin stone fragments, they will need our help. If they don't cooperate with us, what can they do? Lu Ming explained with a smile. Ling Yue's beautiful eyes flashed, surprised by Lu Ming's intelligence. He had actually thought of so many things in an instant. How are we going to get out? There's only one exit in Bing Xian's life soul palace. If Dark Knight Rose and the others are guarding the exit, we won't be able to get out. Ling Yue said. Then there's nothing we can do. We can only wait. Let's wait for a while and then go take a look. Let's go to that snowy mountain. Having said that, Lu Ming headed towards the snowy mountain where he had been cultivating in seclusion. With Dark Knight Rose's intelligence, she would have sensed that something was wrong. It was normal for her to guard the entrance of Bing Xian's life soul palace. Therefore, Lu Ming did not intend to go out now. Anyway, he wanted to refine the long rod weapon and study the fighting souls in the life spirit vitality stone fragments. It was not a bad idea to cultivate here for a while. Of course, the most suitable place for Lu Ming to cultivate was naturally that snowy mountain. In the snowy mountains, the cold wind whistled, the chill was bone-chilling. Lu Ming used the strong wind to envelop himself and Ling Yue, and successfully arrived at the glacier canyon. It was relatively safer here. It was difficult for others to enter, so they could cultivate and research in peace. Ling Yue sat cross-legged at the side and took out the life spirit origin stone fragments to study. As for Lu Ming, he also took out the life spirit origin stone fragments to study. Within the life spirit origin stone fragments, there were so many powerful, undying battle souls. If he could use them, why would he be afraid of Dark Knight Rose? However, after studying it for a long time, he still didn't know how to use it. He could only ask the stone spirit of the life spirit origin stone fragments. If you want to use it, it's very simple. You need to use your spiritual sense to come into contact with the undying battle soul inside the life spirit origin stone. After you get familiar with it, you will be able to summon the undying battle soul from the life spirit origin stone fragments. The stone spirit of the life spirit origin stone fragments explained. There's no need to go through so much trouble. Lu Ming was slightly disappointed. Originally, he had thought that as long as he collected them, he would be able to release as much as he wanted. It seemed that he was overthinking things. The truth was obviously not that simple. He still needed to slowly sense it. What do you think? Of course, it's not that easy. Moreover, the strength of the undying fighting soul is related to your cultivation. The stronger your cultivation, the stronger the undying fighting soul that you can release. This is because you won't be able to sense the undying fighting soul that is much stronger than you. It won't come into contact with you. The stone spirit of the life spirit origin stone fragments said. Lu Ming was even more disappointed. He was disappointed that not only did he need to sense and come into contact with the undying battle soul, but it also had something to do with his cultivation. To put it bluntly, those who were much stronger than him did not care about him at all. In this way, the undying battle souls that he had collected were very limited. Lu Ming's dream of bringing a group of undying battle souls to the world was shattered just like that. Of course, Lu Ming was naturally reluctant to give up and not use them. Immediately, Lu Ming began to try according to the method of the stone spirit of the life spirit origin stone fragments. His spiritual awareness appeared inside the life spirit origin stone fragments and then approached an undying battle soul. The undying battle soul's chi was around the third godly emperor layer. It was easy for the undying battle soul to come into contact with Lu Ming. It allowed Lu Ming to approach it, and there was a strange resonance between the two of them. At first, they were unfamiliar with each other, but as time passed, they gradually became familiar with each other. One day later, Lu Ming felt that it was about time. He withdrew his spiritual awareness from the life spirit origin stone fragments, and then the undying battle soul came out of the life spirit origin stone fragments and floated around Lu Ming. As soon as Lu Ming gave the order, the undying battle soul would attack him violently. Not bad. Lu Ming nodded with satisfaction. It had been so easy to obtain an undying battle soul of the third godly emperor layer. It was already very good. Such an undying battle soul wasn't afraid of death. At a critical moment, it could be very useful. Then he put the undying battle soul away, and Lu Ming's spiritual awareness appeared inside the life spirit origin stone fragments again. This time, Lu Ming sensed a terrifying, undying battle soul. The chi of the undying battle soul was terrifying and unfathomable. It gave Lu Ming a lot of pressure. It was much stronger than the chi of the seventh godly emperor layer. Lu Ming guessed that the undying battle soul's cultivation level was probably higher than the godly emperor layer. It was a gigantic undying battle soul that looked like a bull. It was lying there lazily and yawning from time to time. Lu Ming was very excited. If he could summon the undying battle soul, it would be awesome. It would be like having a powerful fighter with him at all times. Lu Ming flew over and tried to make contact and communicate with the undying fighting soul. However, this huge bull-shaped undying fighting soul opened its eyes and glanced at him. Then its eyes were filled with disdain before it closed its eyes again. Chapter 3890. Nestle, I am being stared at. Lu Ming was annoyed when he saw the disdain in the bull-shaped undying fighting soul's eyes. He then surrounded the bull-shaped undying fighting soul and tried to communicate with it. Senior Bull, what do you mean by that look? Are you looking down on me? Let me tell you, I have a forbidden body. Come, cooperate with me and become my protector. When I grow stronger, I will give you great benefits. What? You are ignoring me? You are not interested in a forbidden body. Preposterous. Lu Ming tried to communicate with the bull-shaped undying fighting soul for a long time, but the bull-shaped undying fighting soul did not even look at him. This was a huge blow to Lu Ming. The undying fighting soul did not have intelligence. How could it know about a forbidden body? It was acting on instinct. Indeed, the vitality stone fragment was right. His cultivation level was too low, and it was difficult for him to communicate with it. In the end, Lu Ming gave up and looked for his next target. That is, Lu Ming saw a giant python. It was huge, and it was like a mountain range in the sky. Lu Ming remembered that the giant python was one of the 8 strongest undying fighting souls at the peak of the mountain. Its aura was unfathomable, and it was many times more terrifying than the bull-shaped undying fighting soul. Lu Ming had collected 3 undying fighting souls at this level. Lu Ming's heart raced. If he could summon such an undying fighting soul, then immediately Lu Ming flew over and tried to communicate and sense the python's undying fighting soul. Naturally, the outcome was destined. The python's undying fighting soul did not even open its eyes from the beginning to the end. It ignored Lu Ming completely. In the end, Lu Ming was discouraged. It seemed that it was not right to be whimsical. He had to take it step by step. After that, Lu Ming gave up on the strong, undying fighting souls and tried to communicate with the weaker ones. After some effort, Lu Ming finally understood the limit of his summoning. 4th Godly Emperor Layer. He could summon the undying soul of a cultivator of the 4th Godly Emperor Layer, but it was difficult for him to communicate with them. However, this was already enough. Time gradually passed, and a few months had passed in the blink of an eye. Lu Ming had managed to establish a connection with more than 100 immortal battle spirits, and was able to summon them to fight for him. Lu Ming was satisfied. More than 100 undying fighting souls were at the 4th or 3rd level of the Godly Emperor realm. They were not afraid of death, and they were very powerful. At the critical moment, they could be of great help. However, Ling Yue's progress didn't seem to be as fast as Lu Ming's. After all, Lu Ming had a forbidden body. It would be easier for him to gain the recognition of the undying fighting souls. It would be easier for him to communicate and sense them. Ling Yue, on the other hand, was a little slower. Lu Ming was almost done with his research on the undying fighting soul, so he started to refine the long staff weapon. Yi Fujian took out the long staff divine weapon. Forbidden power covered the long staff divine weapon and began to refine it. It was extremely difficult to refine such a weapon. Ordinary weapons couldn't be compared to it. It took him 10 years to refine it. After spending a total of 10 years, Lu Ming finally refined the long rod divine weapon. The long staff weapon turned into a beam of light and flew into Lu Ming's consciousness. It was floating in Lu Ming's consciousness. Xianbing staff. When Lu Ming was refining the long staff weapon, a name appeared in his mind. That was the name of the long staff weapon. It was the Xianbing staff that was guarding the Xianbing Life Spirit Palace. The Xianbing staff appeared in Lu Ming's hand. He swung the staff, and a huge explosion occurred. Strong qi swept in all directions. Not bad, not bad. Lu Ming nodded. He was very satisfied. The power of the Xianbing staff was even stronger than the Zephyr Pearl. It was enough to suppress Xiao Wuji, Di Jinni, or Dark Night Rose. When he used it, it was easier and easier. It wasn't as difficult as before. The consumption of forbidden energy was also less. Of course, this was far from the power of the Xianbing staff. It was just that Lu Ming's current cultivation was limited. He could only unleash such power. As Lu Ming's cultivation increased, his control over the Xianbing staff would deepen. The power it could unleash would also become stronger. This could be Lu Ming's new killing weapon. Of course, Lu Ming also understood that such a killing weapon couldn't be used easily. This was because such a weapon was too high level and too precious. Once it was discovered by those terrifying existences, they would probably kill him and snatch the Xianbing staff away. Therefore, he had to be careful when using it in the future. He couldn't use it unless he had no other choice. At this moment, Lu Ming and Ling Yue decided to go out. It had already been more than 10 years. Dark Night Rose, and the others should have already left. Furthermore, even if Dark Night Rose and the others were still guarding the entrance of the Bing Xian Life Soul Palace, Lu Ming was no longer afraid. Now that he had refined the mysterious ice rod and had more than 100 undying fighting souls in the natal spirit stone fragment that he could control, even if he met Anya Rose and the other two again, he was not afraid. Even if he could not defeat them, he could still escape. Along the way, they didn't encounter any unforeseen events. They arrived at the entrance of the Bing Xian Life Soul Palace without any obstructions. Dark Night Rose and the others had already left. The two of them safely left the Bing Xian Life Soul Palace and arrived at a remote planet. All right, the exploration of the Bing Xian Life Soul Palace has been completed. There are no other clues about the Life Soul Heavenly Court, so let's split up here. Lu Ming said to Ling Yue. Split up. Ling Yue was slightly stunned. Of course, I'm going back to the Fengdu Sword Sect in the Iron Sea Star Field Group. Lu Ming said, You're not going back to the elf clan with me? Ling Yue said, Of course I won't go with you to the elf clan. Lu Ming immediately shook his head. Ling Yue's eyes widened, filled with grievance. Lu Ming actually rejected her so quickly. What did he mean by that? Did he hate her that much? We are engaged and will get married sooner or later. Why don't you come back to the elf clan with me this time and hold a wedding? Ling Yue stared at Lu Ming. Marriage, of course not. Lu Ming immediately shook his head and said seriously, How can a lowly person like me be worthy of you? Didn't you all look down on me in the past? I think we should just forget about it. It's not suitable. You hate me that much? Ling Yue bit her lips, and tears began to appear in her big eyes. She had a pitiful look on her face. No, I don't hate you. It's just that, to be honest, I already have someone I like. Lu Ming said. You have someone you like? Could it be that the other party is more beautiful than me, and that her talent is higher than mine? Ling Yue asked, her eyes revealing a raging flame of curiosity. A woman's heart of comparison still flared up. Chapter 3891. Lu Ming was speechless by Ling Yue's question, and could only answer honestly, yes, in my eyes, she is the most beautiful and the most talented. Lu Ming was referring to Xian Yinqing. In Lu Ming's eyes, Xian Yinqing was naturally the best. Only Autumn Moon could compare to him. No matter how beautiful Ling Yue was or how talented she was, she couldn't compare to Xian Yinqing. Seeing Lu Ming's reply, Ling Yue let out a faint sigh. She knew that Lu Ming really didn't have any feelings for him. In her heart, she really felt that it was a pity. Lu Ming's talent was simply too high. She had encountered countless monstrous geniuses. If she lined them up, she could circle a planet several times. However, she was certain that none of them could compare to Lu Ming. If she had to marry someone, she would definitely choose Lu Ming. Unfortunately, Lu Ming already had a sweetheart. The elf clan had actually looked down on such a genius in the past, completely ignoring him and not interacting with him at all. They were truly blind. After sorting out her emotions, Ling Yue looked at Lu Ming and said, You already have a sweetheart, so I won't force you. However, I still hope that you can help me once and follow me back to the elf clan. You still want to marry me? Lu Ming was shocked. No, we don't need to get married. I just hope that you and I will pretend to be together and do me a favor. You also know that my father wants to marry a genius of the angel clan, but that's a playboy. I would rather die than marry him, and you are my fiancé. If you and I return to the elf clan and pretend that we are already together, then my father will naturally not force me to marry that genius of the angel clan. Ling Yue said, Why should I help you? If I help you, I will definitely offend that genius of the angel clan. This is not worth it for me. Lu Ming immediately shook his head. We've known each other for a while. Can't you help me? Even if we're not fated to be together, we're still friends, aren't we? Are you just going to watch me fall into the fire pit and not care? Do you have the heart to do that? As she spoke, Ling Yue's tears actually fell down her face with a pitter-patter. The beauty's tears were too lethal. Lu Ming could not withstand it all of a sudden. Lu Ming felt a headache coming on. Don't worry, I won't let you help me for free. I know you need a lot of energy to cultivate. When we return to the elf clan, I will give you some treasures with pure energy, enough for you to break through to the divine emperor realm. What do you think? Ling Yue continued. This. All right then, I'll promise you. But first, I really won't marry you. Lu Ming said. Lu Ming dared to swear to the heavens that he really wasn't doing this for the other party's treasure. He was just being kind and wanted to help the other party. All right, don't worry. Ling Yue immediately burst into laughter. After agreeing to Ling Yue's request, Lu Ming could only change his route and follow Ling Yue towards the elf clan. The elf clan was ranked 33rd in the great, desolate 10,000 races. It was undoubtedly a very powerful and prosperous race. When the elf clan was at its peak, it was close to the top 10. It was extremely glorious, so the territory occupied by the elf clan was also very vast. As for the elf clan, they also had a mother planet called the elf clan's mother planet. It was also born when the heavens and earth first opened. It was similar to the dragon clan's mother planet, but it wasn't as large and vast as the dragon clan's mother planet. Legend had it that the dragon clan's mother planet had given birth to 49 primordial divine dragons, while the elf clan's mother planet had given birth to 12 primordial elves. However, as long as it was a mother planet, it was known as immortality. A month later, Lu Ming and Ling Yue arrived at the elf clan's mother planet. What a prosperous planet! I wonder how many powerful existences there are here. Lu Ming sighed. This was the second time Lu Ming had come to a mother planet level life planet. The elf clan's mother planet and the dragon clan's mother planet gave off a completely different feeling. The dragon clan's mother planet had experienced a tragic battle. In the end, it was sealed by the dragon clan with 10,000 dragon seals. When Lu Ming went there, the dragon clan's mother planet was recovering. However, it was recovering and was far from reaching its peak. Furthermore, it lacked powerhouses. On the other hand, the elf clan's mother planet was different. It was prosperous to the extreme, and the divine energy was extremely dense. With a casual breath, it was as if there was a substantial divine energy being sucked into one's mouth. On the ground, there were countless mountains and rivers that gave birth to countless living beings. Among them, divine medicines were everywhere, and they were lush and verdant. This was a true, holy land for cultivation. At the same time, Lu Ming spread out his spiritual sense and felt that the entire dragon clan's mother planet was filled with countless extremely oppressive and terrifying auras. Although these auras were all restrained and dormant, Lu Ming's spiritual sense was very sharp. When he sensed carefully, he could still feel a terrifying pressure. It was unknown how many powerhouses were hibernating in the entire elf clan's mother planet. Is this the foundation of a large clan? It's truly terrifying. This is still a race ranked 33rd. How terrifying would the top 10 races be? And how strong would the heavenly palace be to be able to suppress all the races? Lu Ming sighed in his heart. We're almost at the elf palace. At this moment, Ling Yue spoke out, interrupting Lu Ming's thoughts. Lu Ming looked forward. Even though Lu Ming thought that he was experienced and knowledgeable, his eyes were still wide open and his heart trembled. In front of him was a forest. However, this forest was simply too big and boundless. Even with Lu Ming's eyesight, he couldn't see the end of it. The most important thing was that the trees in this forest were too big. Ancient trees rose from the ground, towering into the clouds. The shortest one was 100 miles tall. The tallest one was 1,000 miles, 10,000 miles, and 100,000 miles tall. They pierced through the atmosphere. The diameter of each ancient tree was tens of miles, and the thickest was tens of thousands of miles in front of Lu Ming's eyes. It was as if countless world trees had appeared. In front of the ancient tree, a person was as small as a speck of dust. On each ancient tree, there were magnificent palaces built. Within the palaces, there were figures flying back and forth. They were all elves. The man was handsome, and the woman was beautiful. It's the princess. The princess has returned. As soon as the two of them approached, they were discovered. Many surprised voices rang out. Many elves appeared in front of them and bowed respectfully to Ling Yue. No need to be so polite. Ling Yue nodded and flew into the depths of the forest with Lu Ming. On the way, many elves greeted Ling Yue. Then they all looked at Lu Ming curiously. Ling Yue had actually brought an unfamiliar man back, which surprised them. One had to know that there were as many geniuses as the stars in the sky who pursued Ling Yue, but they had never seen Ling Yue take the initiative to bring a man back. This was the first time, so the elves were naturally curious. This young man looks so familiar. Oh right, he's Mu Yan. I've seen him in the Dream Jade. Suddenly someone shouted. Chapter 3892. Among the elves, there was finally someone who recognized Lu Ming. Back then, because of Ling Yue's matter, the geniuses of the various races had charged to the Iron Sea Star region and engaged in an intense confrontation with Lu Ming. Ling Yue was the elf princess, so she naturally attracted the attention of countless elves. Many people had seen Lu Ming in the Dream Jade. Just now, he was surprised and didn't recognize him. Now that he looked at him seriously, He naturally recognized Lu Ming. It's really him, that Mu Yin from the Iron Sea Star region. The princess actually brought him back to the elven imperial capital. Could it be that she really wants to marry him? No, I don't believe it. This isn't true. My heart hurts so much. The princess is mine. Many elven men clutched their chests and cried out in grief. Lu Ming's face was full of smiles as he sighed in his heart. The elf princess was indeed very popular. He didn't know if it was right or wrong to come and help Ling Yue this time. The two of them did not stop and continued to fly deeper into the elven palace. The deeper they flew, the larger and more majestic the ancient trees became. On top of every ancient tree, there was a palace. From afar, it was truly incomparably majestic. Not long after, the two of them arrived in front of an ancient tree that was 30,000 kilometers tall. This elven tree and the palace above it are my private property. You can live up there first and wait for me to arrange it later. How about it? Ling Yue said. Lu Ming nodded. Naturally, he had no objections. The two of them flew into the palace in the middle of the branches. The palace was extremely majestic. Inside, there were courtyards, pavilions, small bridges, and flowing water. There was even a lake on one side. It was magnificent, like a garden in the sky. This is for you. See if it's useful to you. At this time, Ling Yue took out something. It was an emerald green thing that looked like a wooden stick. It was as thick as a finger and emitted waves of fragrance. This is... Lu Ming took it and sensed it. His eyes lit up slightly. On this wooden stick, Lu Ming could feel an incomparably strong life essence. This life essence was somewhat similar to the bone pearl he had obtained before. Of course, it was only similar. In terms of energy, it was still inferior to that bone pearl. What is this? Lu Ming asked. This is called the Elvenwood Heart, and it's the specialty of the elven race. See if it's useful. I promise to get you some resources, and if it's useful, I'll collect a batch of Elvenwood Hearts for you. Ling Yue said. Of course. Lu Ming nodded repeatedly. The more such treasures there were, the better. All right, you can stay here for now. I'll go and collect some for you. Ling Yue nodded and left. Lu Ming stayed in the palace, trying to figure out the secret technique and train himself. Ling Yue and Lu Ming separated and headed deeper into the elven palace. However, not long after, they were stopped by an old elf with a head full of white hair. Greetings, princess. The old elf bowed slightly, his face full of kindness. Third elder, are you looking for me? Ling Yue's eyes flashed. It's not me who's looking for you. It's His Majesty who's looking for you. Right now, His Majesty is waiting for your highness in the fairy palace. The old elf said, Father is looking for me. Ling Yue's eyes flashed again, and a trace of panic appeared in the depths of her eyes. The elven race was a very special race. They were both a race and a kingdom, known as the Elven Imperial Court. Therefore, this place was known as the Elven Palace, and Ling Yue was also known as the Elven Princess. As for the Elven Patriarch, he was naturally known as the Elven Emperor. Princess, please. The old elf waved his hand slightly. Ling Yue nodded and stepped into the air, heading towards the Elven Palace. The Elven Palace was the place where the elves usually discussed matters. It was very spacious and majestic, but right now there weren't many people. There was a middle-aged elf sitting at the top. Although he was old, he was still very handsome. Moreover, there was an unparalleled majesty that was emitted from him. He was the current Elven Patriarch and also the Elven Emperor, Ling Huashua. Below, there were a few figures sitting, a middle-aged man and two young women. This middle-aged man was Ling Yue's second uncle. The two young men and women were her second uncle's children. However, they were both older than Ling Yue and could be considered Ling Yue's cousins. After Ling Yue walked in, her gaze swept across the room before she stepped forward with a smile on her face. Yue greets Royal Father. It's been a long time since we last met. I miss royal father very much. Miss me? Ling Huashua coldly snorted and said with a dark face, I thought you were having fun outside and had already forgotten about me, your royal father. How could that be? Your daughter is always thinking about royal father outside. It's just that I encountered a fortuitous encounter and went into seclusion to cultivate and break through to the divine emperor realm. That's why I didn't come back. As soon as I finished cultivating, I rushed back to see you. Ling Yue said with a coquettish tone, You have indeed broken through to the divine emperor realm. Not bad. Ling Huashua nodded, revealing a trace of satisfaction, and his expression softened a little. From the quasi-emperor to the divine emperor, there was a threshold that was very difficult to break through. Many geniuses were stuck at this threshold. They were unable to break through and would regret it for the rest of their lives. Once they crossed this threshold, they would truly be considered the upper echelons of the universe, especially the younger generation. Once they crossed this threshold, they would truly be considered the top geniuses of the universe. Without crossing it, those true big shots wouldn't care at all. For example, the top 100 quasi-emperors, the top 10 races, and the heavenly palace wouldn't interfere. They were all arranged by some idle people and couldn't be considered formal. In the quasi-emperor realm, no matter how talented one was, in the eyes of the true big shots, it was just a small matter. In the quasi-emperor realm, no matter how strong one was, if one was stuck there and couldn't break through, everything would be in vain. Therefore, Ling Yue's breakthrough was of great significance. Ling Huashua was naturally happy. He broke through to the divine emperor realm. At the side, Ling Yue's two cousins were stunned. A trace of displeasure appeared in the depths of their eyes. However, it only flashed for a moment before disappearing without a trace. Cousin, I heard that during this period of time, you and that Mu Yin from the Iron Sea Star region are together. This time, you even brought that Mu Yin back. I wonder if it's true? Ling Yue's cousin, Ling Piao, said. As soon as she said this, Ling Huashua's face, which had already eased up a little, darkened again. That's right. During this period of time, I was indeed together with Mu Yun. However, Mu Yun and I were engaged. It's normal for us to be together, isn't it? Ling Yue generously admitted it. The reason she brought Lu Ming back was to let everyone know that she was already together with Mu Yin. Nonsense. Ling Huashua slammed the table and berated. The majesty on his body became even stronger, and Ling Yue immediately fell silent. That's right, cousin. It's not that I want to criticize you, but that Mu Yin, although he has some talent, how can he be worthy of you? The genius of the angel race is a good match for you. Ling Piao interrupted again. Chapter 3893. That's right. Moreover, our elf clan has already agreed with the angel clan to form a marriage alliance with the angel clan. This is a great opportunity for our elf clan. Cousin, you can't be too selfish. Ling Yue's cousin also spoke up. Piao and the others are right. Yue, this matter is not up to you. Ling Yue's second uncle continued. I've said it before, I won't marry that playboy from the angel clan. If you want to curry favor with others, go ahead and curry favor with them. Don't pull me in. I'm not interested in currying favor with others. What's more, my engagement with Muyun was set by grandfather. After grandfather passed away, did you ignore the promise he made when he was alive? Is this how filial you are? Ling Yue retorted. As soon as these words were spoken, the expressions of Ling Huashua and the others turned even uglier. Ling Yue, this was a blatant slap to their faces. Everything has to be done for the greater good. Moreover, your talent is peerless. That Mu Yin is not worthy of you at all. Ling Huashua said, his tone slightly softening. Big brother is right. Back then, father was too loyal. Sometimes he would do things in a biased manner. We can't continue to make mistakes. How can that Mu Yin compare to the geniuses of the Angel clan? He probably came back with you to climb up the social ladder and borrow the power of our elf clan. Ling Yue's second uncle continued. In any case, they didn't think highly of Lu Ming and suggested various marriage alliances with the Angel clan. While they were chatting, the palace where Lu Ming was staying was bustling with noise and excitement. Not long after Ling Yue left, someone came looking for her. Mu Yin, get the hell out here. Outside the palace, someone roared. Trouble has come knocking so quickly. Lu Ming rubbed his temples, feeling a headache. He had long known that trouble would come knocking, but he didn't expect it to come so quickly. Lu Ming opened the door and walked out. He saw some young people standing in the air outside, all of them youths from the elf clan. Seeing Lu Ming come out, the youths of the elf race stared at Lu Ming. It was as if they were looking at him with swords. If looks could kill, then Lu Ming would have turned into a hornet's nest. Everyone, I've just arrived, and you've already come to see me. The enthusiasm of the elves really surprises me. Lu Ming grinned. In terms of shamelessness, Lu Ming believed that he was second only to Dandan. The young elf was stunned. To see him? Passion? Bullshit. Brat, you should know your place. Why don't you take a piss and look at yourself in the mirror? How can you be worthy of our princess? If you know what's good for you, you'd better get out of the elf tribe's territory and never meet our princess again. That's right. Our princess is the pride of the heavens. How could an ordinary man be a match for her? Don't make yourself a laughingstock. The young elves mocked and ridiculed one after another. I'm not worthy, but you guys are? Lu Ming smiled faintly with a hint of sarcasm in his tone. These young elves were obviously Ling Yue's admirers. Lu Ming's words made the young elves' faces turn ugly. However, they couldn't refute him for a moment. They more or less knew about Lu Ming's combat strength. Back then, many geniuses from various races had tried to find trouble with Lu Ming, but they had all been defeated by Lu Ming. Even the monstrous geniuses on the Quasi-Emperor Top 100 list, especially 9 Silkworm Prince, who was ranked 49th on the Quasi-Emperor Top 100 list, were no match for Lu Ming. Their abilities were far inferior to 9 Silkworm Princes. They really didn't have the confidence to refute Lu Ming's words. You're not qualified, yet you're talking about me. Get out of here as far as you can. Lu Ming waved his hand casually, as if he was chasing away a group of annoying flies. How dare you? Impudent! You're courting death. Angry roars rang out. Some of the young elves were so provoked that they jumped up, their faces full of anger. Oh, if you guys want to attack, then come. Feel free to attack. I'll take it all, Lu Ming said. Since he had agreed to help Ling Yue, he planned to be more high-profile and show off his talent. Only then would he be able to attract the attention of the elves and help Ling Yue. Moreover, he had already sensed that these young elves were all below the divine Emperor realm. To be honest, he wasn't afraid of anyone below the divine Emperor realm in the entire primitive universe. No matter how many came, he would beat them all. Lu Ming's words angered the young elves even more. Arrogant, too arrogant. He's so arrogant just because he has some strength. Let's attack together and teach him a lesson. That's right, let's attack together, someone roared. Then, at least a dozen people stepped out. War bows appeared in their hands, and arrows were aimed at Lu Ming. Powerful auras locked onto Lu Ming. These young elves were all quasi-emperors and could be called geniuses. However, there was still a big gap between their combat strength and the geniuses on the quasi-emperor's top 100 list. Whoosh! 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 More than a dozen arrows flew through the air toward Lu Ming, aiming at more than a dozen of Lu Ming's vital points. These people were also geniuses. Their combat strength was very strong, and each of them had the strength to challenge a divine emperor realm. With more than a dozen of them working together, they believed that even 9 Silkworm Prince would lose without a doubt. However, Lu Ming was no longer the Lu Ming who fought 9 silkworm princes. Compared to that time, Lu Ming was many times stronger. Now, facing 9 silkworm princes, Lu Ming could crush him with a single finger. Therefore, Lu Ming stood there motionless, allowing the arrows to approach him. "It's done." Seeing that the arrows were about to hit Lu Ming, many young elves were overjoyed. It was as if they could already see the scene of Lu Ming being shot into a beehive. At this moment, Lu Ming moved. He reached out a hand and grabbed the air. All of a sudden, shadows of palms appeared in the air. It was as if Lu Ming suddenly had more than 10 hands, and he caught all the arrows. In the next moment, the palm shadows disappeared, and there were more than a dozen arrows in Lu Ming's hand. How is this possible? The young elves' eyes almost popped out of their sockets. More than 10 top-notch quasi-emperor geniuses joined forces and unleashed their most powerful arrow. However, Lu Ming caught it so easily. How could his combat strength be so strong? Was this the strength of the geniuses on the quasi-emperor's top 100 list? Was the gap between them and the geniuses on the quasi-emperor's top 100 list so big? At this moment, they began to doubt their lives. "I'll return them to you." Lu Ming waved his hand, and the dozen arrows in his hand flew back the way they came. But they were faster than when they came, and they shot toward their masters. The young elves' expressions changed drastically. They wanted to dodge, but it was too late. Their shoulders were pierced by the arrows. They retreated quickly and spat out mouthfuls of blood. Chapter 3894. The dozen or so elven prodigies who had attacked just now had their shoulders pierced by their own arrows. Obviously, Lu Ming had already shown mercy. If these arrows had pierced their vital points, it was unimaginable. The scene was silent. "Now, do I have the qualifications to be worthy of the elven princess?" Lu Ming said indifferently. No one said anything. If even Lu Ming wasn't worthy, then didn't that mean that they were even more unworthy? You do have some strength, but you are too arrogant. How can you be worthy of Princess Yue? At this moment, a cold voice sounded. In the distance, a figure stepped on the air. It was also a young elven man. His long hair was tied up high, and he was very handsome. He wore a silver robe and looked like an elegant young master. "It's Hua Xing!" Some elven youths exclaimed. Not everyone in the elven race had the surname Ling. In fact, only the elven royal family had the surname Ling. The other elves had all kinds of surnames. Hua Xing of the top 100 quasi-emperors. Lu Ming's heart stirred. He had specially learned about the top 100 quasi-emperors before, and he had long memorized the names on it. Above them was Hua Xing, ranked 23rd on the top 100 quasi-emperors list. He was a monstrous genius who was much stronger than 9 silkworm princes. There were a total of 2 elves on the top 100 quasi-emperors list. They were Ling Yue and Hua Xing. Therefore, Ling Yue and Hua Xing were also known as the 2 walls below the divine emperor of the elves. Naturally, Hua Xing admired Ling Yue a lot. He wholeheartedly wanted to marry Ling Yue as his wife and rise to the top. With his talent, he might be able to become an overlord in the future. Therefore, he did not allow others to touch Ling Yue. If Ling Yue and the angel race were to marry, he would be helpless. However, he did not put a mere Mu Yun in his eyes. He wanted to suppress Lu Ming and make Ling Yue look at him in a new light. That way, Ling Yue might not marry the angel race and be with him instead. Although the hope was not great, as long as there was a glimmer of hope, he would fight for it. Hua Xing's eyes shone as he stared at Lu Ming. Very quickly, he stopped 10,000 meters away from Lu Ming. "Mu Yin, I know you defeated 9 silkworm princes, but 9 silkworm prince is only 49th on the list of quasi-emperors. He's far from being a true genius. Do you understand?" Hua Xing said coldly, "So you're saying that you're the true top genius?" Lu Ming said with a faint smile. You could say that. Hua Xing nodded confidently. Oh, then what business does a top genius like you have with me? Lu Ming said, Challenge me. Fight me. Hua Xing said as his battle intent soared into the sky. Challenge me. The corners of Lu Ming's mouth curled up slightly, and he said, It's the truth. I'm actually not interested in challenging trash like you, because there's no challenge at all. Nest, you're too arrogant. Who does he think he is? Someone in the top 10 of the list of quasi-emperors? How dare he look down on Hua Xing? He's really overestimating himself. I think he said that on purpose because he doesn't dare to accept the challenge. Lu Ming's words caused an uproar. Hua Xing's eyes were also burning with anger. He was actually looked down on by Lu Ming, which made him furious. In his anger, a cold killing intent burst out. Of course. At this moment, Lu Ming's tone changed again, and he said, If you must challenge me, it's not impossible. How about we add some stakes? Stakes? What stakes? Hua Xing narrowed his eyes and asked. This is it. Lu Ming moved his hand, and the elvenwood heart that Ling Yue had given him appeared. Let's make a bet. I'll bet 100 of these elvenwood hearts. If I lose, I'll give you 100. If you lose, you'll give me 100. How about it? Lu Ming said. Ever since he discovered the benefits of this elvenwood heart, Lu Ming had a plan. This time, he couldn't come to the elf clan for nothing. He had to collect a good batch of this elvenwood heart. It would be of great use to his future cultivation. Since Hua Xing wanted to challenge him, how could Lu Ming miss this opportunity to collect the elvenwood heart? 100 elvenwood hearts. Hua Xing frowned. 100 elvenwood hearts was not a small number. Even if he took it out, it would still hurt. What is it? You don't have 100 elvenwood hearts? Lu Ming asked. Of course I do. I'm just afraid that you don't. The elvenwood heart is a treasure unique to my elf clan, Hua Xing said. Ha ha ha, you don't have to worry about that. With my relationship with Yue, how could I not even take out 100 elvenwood hearts? Lu Ming grinned and called Ling Yue very intimately, causing the surrounding elf clan youths to almost vomit blood. Of course, the one who was the most angry was Hua Xing. His expression was rather ugly as he immediately agreed. All right, I promise you. Let's fight. I'll bet 100 elvenwood hearts. Ha ha ha. Just as Lu Ming and Hua Xing were about to fight, someone from the elf palace immediately reported the situation of Lu Ming, Hua Xing, and the others to Ling Huashua and the others. They can't fight. When Ling Yue heard the news, she immediately said, Why can't we fight? Only this way can we test Mu Yun's level. I think it's pretty good. Could it be that you're afraid that Mu Yun will be severely injured by Hua Xing? Then he can only blame himself for not being skilled enough and not having enough talent. He's not worthy of you at all. Ling Yue's second uncle, Ling Huafeng, said, No, I'm afraid that Mu Yun will accidentally injure Hua Xing. They aren't Mu Yun's match, Ling Yue explained. She was very clear about Lu Ming's strength. He was simply too strong and wasn't something that Hua Xing and the others could contend against. The difference was too great. What she said was the truth. Once they made a move, she was really afraid that Lu Ming would make a mistake and heavily injure the geniuses of the elf clan. It would be bad if he attracted even more hostility. However, the others didn't believe him at all. Ling Huafeng, Ling Piao, and the others sneered and shook their heads. Yue, if you're afraid that Mu Yun won't be able to win, then just say it. Why are you finding such an excuse? Seriously, what do you want me to say about you? Ling Piao kept shaking her head, as if she had seen through Ling Yue's thoughts. Ling Huashua's face was also gloomy. It was obvious that he didn't believe Ling Yue's words. He couldn't understand why Ling Yue was usually so proud and arrogant. There weren't many men who could make her look up to him. So why was she protecting Mu Yun now? Could it be that Ling Yue had really fallen in love with Mu Yin? What was so special about Mu Yin? Let's go take a look. Ling Huashua opened his mouth, and with a wave of his hand, a mysterious and unfathomable power spread out, causing ripples in the air. Then everyone in the hall disappeared, and in the next moment, they appeared above Lu Ming and the others. However, they were enveloped by a mysterious power. Lu Ming and the others below had no idea that someone was spying on them. Chapter 3895. However, just because Lu Ming and the others couldn't detect, it didn't mean that no one else could. The battle character art in Lu Ming's Sea of Consciousness shrunk rapidly, as if it was about to disappear from time to time. The Bone Demon's aura was also extremely restrained, as if it had turned into a skeleton without any aura. Bone Demon, what's wrong? Lu Ming used his spiritual consciousness to detect the abnormality of the Bone Demon and the battle character art. There's a terrifying expert spying on us from above. I can't be discovered. Take care of yourself. The Bone Demon replied, and then no longer had any aura. A terrifying expert. Lu Ming's pupils shrank slightly. He knew very well how high the Bone Demon's standards were. For the Bone Demon to call someone terrifying, it had to be extremely terrifying. Could it be a top expert of the elf race? Lu Ming's thoughts were in a whirl, but he pretended that he didn't know anything. He stood in the void because he and Huaxing were about to fight. Boom! In the void tens of thousands of meters away, Huaxing's aura soared to the peak. His entire body was shrouded in a bright green light, and a huge war bow appeared. One could clearly see that his entire body's essence, qi, and spirit were all injected into the war bow, like small snakes. This is the Sky Splitter Bow technique. Huaxing actually used the Sky Splitter Bow technique right off the bat. That's normal. Although Mu Yin is arrogant, he's still strong. After all, he defeated 9 Silkworm Prince before. Huaxing doesn't dare to be careless. However, the Sky Splitter Bow art is extremely overbearing. Once the bow is drawn, it can split the sky. Its destructive power is shocking. Can Mu Yin block it? He should be able to block 1 arrow. The key is how many arrows can he block? He definitely can't block 3 arrows. You have to know that each arrow of the Sky Splitter Bow technique is stronger than the last. More and more youths from the elf race gathered around, and there was a lot of discussion. Many people who understood the power of Huaxing's Sky Splitter Bow technique thought that Lu Ming wouldn't be able to block 3 arrows. Although Lu Ming had defeated 9 Silkworm Prince, 9 Silkworm Prince was only ranked 49th in the top 100 rankings. Huaxing, on the other hand, was ranked 23rd. If Huaxing fought 9 Silkworm Prince, Huaxing would very likely defeat 9 Silkworm Prince with 1 arrow. Most of the elves used bows and arrows, and the power of bows and arrows was very strong. Once an arrow was shot, it could kill in 1 shot. Huaxing's aura was getting stronger and stronger, but Lu Ming just stood there and watched quietly. Facing an archery expert, he actually didn't make the first move to interrupt his opponent's momentum. Instead, he just stood there motionless. This kind of behavior shows that he doesn't have the slightest bit of battle awareness. Can he even be considered a genius? High in the sky, Ling Piao sneered. I think it's just brute force. Ling Yue's cousin also shook his head and smiled. At this moment, Ling Yue didn't say anything. What was there to say? Just wait for Huaxing to be tortured. Whoosh! Finally, Huaxing's aura rose to its peak. An emerald green arrow pierced through the air, directly tearing a pitch-black passage in the sky. With astonishing speed, it shot towards Lu Ming. To be honest, its power was really strong. It was only slightly weaker than Ling Yue's full strength. In the entire desolate universe, there weren't many people below the divine emperor realm who could catch it. Of course, this was only for other quasi-emperors. To Lu Ming, this arrow was very weak. Too weak. Lu Ming only stretched out a hand and grabbed at the air. With a buzz, the arrow shot by Hua Xing was caught by Lu Ming. Then everyone was stunned. Their eyes were wide open, and their mouths were even wider than a snake's. Stunned, stunned, stunned. Hua Xing's arrow was actually caught by Lu Ming so casually. What was going on? Could it be that Hua Xing's arrow just now was just a test? He didn't use much strength at all and was seen through by Lu Ming? That couldn't be. The power of that arrow just now was extremely shocking and terrifying. Its power was extraordinary. Many people felt their minds go blank and couldn't react for a moment. High up in the sky, Ling Piao and her brother were also dumbfounded. They were very familiar with Hua Xing and knew how powerful he was. If their cultivation was also at the quasi-emperor level, they definitely wouldn't be able to catch his arrow. However, Lu Ming caught it so casually. How was this possible? Even Ling Huashua and Ling Huafeng's pupils shrank slightly, revealing a trace of surprise. Interesting, Ling Huashua whispered. This caused Ling Huafeng and Ling Piao's faces to darken slightly. At this moment, the most shocked person was Hua Xing himself. He had used almost all his strength in that arrow just now. His original intention was to kill Lu Ming with one arrow. However, he never expected that the arrow he shot with all his strength would be caught by Lu Ming so easily. This made him lose face. Damn it, I don't believe it. Sky splitter arrow, arrow piercing the heavens. Hua Xing shouted loudly and poured all of his divine power into the battle bow, as if it was free. Buzz! Buzz! This time, 2 arrows flew out at the same time and shot toward Lu Ming. The 2 arrows, one after the other, broke through the void and went straight between Lu Ming's eyebrows. The power was more terrifying than before. However, Lu Ming's face was still calm. He stretched out his hand, and the 2 arrows were caught in Lu Ming's hand like 2 toys. This time, Hua Xing didn't stop and shot out another arrow. This time it was 3 arrows at the same time. As soon as the 3 arrows were shot out, Hua Xing shot out another arrow before they could get close to Lu Ming. This time there were 4 arrows. There were a total of 7 arrows. The 7 arrows actually gathered in the air. When the 7 arrows gathered in one, their power was incredible. The sky splitter bow was really powerful. It was really worthy of its reputation. Even a cultivator of the 2nd godly emperor layer wouldn't dare take that attack head-on. They would be severely injured. Being ranked 23rd in the list of the top 100 quasi-emperors wasn't just a title, it was real. After that, Lu Ming did the same thing as before. He stretched out his hand and grabbed the arrow. Buzz! The arrow was in Lu Ming's hand, and it kept vibrating. However, when Lu Ming squeezed it, the arrow exploded with a bang, turning into energy and disappearing. No, that's impossible. Hua Xing couldn't believe it. He had already used all of his divine power. He had used all of his strength. But Lu Ming had still caught the arrow so easily. It was a huge blow to him. He couldn't accept it. Lu Ming wasn't a godly emperor. He was probably just below the godly emperor layer. How could the gap between them be so big? On the side, the other young men were dumbstruck. They couldn't say anything. Ling Piao and her brother were also dumbstruck. They didn't say anything for a long time. Ling Huashua and Ling Huafeng were also astonished. Lu Ming's strength had exceeded their expectations. Only Ling Yuwei's expression remained calm. From the beginning to the end, it hadn't changed at all, because all of this was within her expectations. Chapter 3896. Ling Yue's expression remained calm. She had already expected this scene. As a quasi-emperor, how could Hua Xing be a match for Lu Ming? The difference between them was too great. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. Die for me. Being watched by so many people, Hua Xing felt that he had lost all his face. His face flushed red and he went completely berserk. The divine power in his body burned fiercely and then crazily poured into the battle bow. He wanted to condense a powerful arrow and make a final struggle. However, Lu Ming did not plan to give him a chance to continue attacking. Lu Ming took a step forward and activated the great divine wind technique. With a few flashes, his figure appeared in front of Hua Xing, and then he struck out with his palm. With a palm strike, the wind and clouds changed. A huge palm was formed and pressed down on Hua Xing. Bang! The arrow that Hua Xing had just condensed directly collapsed. Hua Xing was sent flying tens of thousands of meters away by Lu Ming's slap. He vomited large mouthfuls of blood. If it weren't for the others catching him, he wouldn't even be able to maintain his position in the air. Defeated, Hua Xing had lost, and he had lost miserably. In Lu Ming's hands, he was like a baby, unable to withstand a single blow. You shouted very loudly. So that's all you have. Lu Ming shook his head and sighed, looking very disappointed. Puff! Hua Xing was so angry that he vomited blood again. Earlier on, he was still acting all high and mighty, as if he was invincible, as if he could send Lu Ming flying with one slap. In the end, he was the one who was sent flying with one slap. Embarrassing, it was too embarrassing. He wished he could find a hole in the ground and hide in it. Don't worry about vomiting blood. Hurry up and give me the 100 elven wood hearts you owe me. Lu Ming continued. Puff! Hua Xing continued to vomit blood. He remembered that not only had he lost, but he also had to give Lu Ming 100 elven wood hearts. Hua Xing felt uncomfortable, incomparably uncomfortable. His heart ached so much that it felt like it was about to split open. If you're a man, then don't be so wishy-washy. If you're willing to bet, then accept your loss. Hurry up and hand over the elven wood heart. Lu Ming urged. Hua Xing was really reluctant and hesitated. However, with so many people watching, if he did not hand it over, it would be even more embarrassing. In the future, he would not be able to raise his head in the elven race. After dawdling for a while, Hua Xing finally took out a storage ring and threw it to Lu Ming. His heart ached so much that it was bleeding. Mu Yin, just you wait. After tossing the storage ring to Mu Yin, Hua Xing turned around and left, disappearing without a trace in the blink of an eye. Lu Ming quickly took out the storage ring and scanned it with his spiritual sense. A smile appeared on his face. In the storage ring, there were 100 elven wood cores neatly arranged. All of them were genuine goods. This was a good thing. Lu Ming happily put it away. Is there anyone else who wants to make a bet? It's still the elven tree heart. How about it? Lu Ming looked around and scanned the elves one by one. His eyes were filled with anticipation. It was simply too worth it to be able to obtain so many elven tree hearts just by fighting. Lu Ming suddenly looked forward to someone challenging him. Unfortunately, he was disappointed. All the elves avoided his gaze, not daring to look at him. What a joke! Hua Xing was a monstrous genius, ranked 23rd on the Quasi-Emperor Top 100 list. At the Quasi-Emperor level, he was already standing at the peak of the universe. However, he was still defeated so miserably by Lu Ming. Who would dare to go up? Wouldn't that be looking for a beating? Who would be so bored as to seek a beating? Unless it was a genius above the divine emperor level. However, it would be embarrassing for a genius above the divine emperor level to deal with a quasi-emperor. This guy! In the sky, Ling Yue was speechless. She had promised to help Lu Ming collect a batch of elven tree hearts. She hadn't even started yet, but Lu Ming had already started collecting them himself. This greedy guy. Ling Yue secretly despised him in her heart, but her face was full of smiles. She specially looked at Ling Piao and the others and said, I've said it before, Hua Xing isn't a match for Lu Ming. I was afraid that Mu Yin would injure Hua Xing, but you guys didn't believe me. Do you see it now? Ling Piao and her sister had ugly expressions on their faces as they remained silent. His strength is not bad, but unfortunately his cultivation is too low. He's only a quasi-emperor. His future is unknown. Ling Huafeng shook his head slightly. Second uncle, do you think that with Mu Yun's talent, the bottleneck of the divine emperor realm can trap him? Ling Yue said. That's hard to say. Without a breakthrough, everything is possible. In history, there have been countless geniuses who were astonishingly talented, but in the end they were still trapped in the quasi-emperor realm and were unable to break through. In the end, they died of depression. Moreover, even if he can break through to the divine emperor realm, so what? Can he be compared to the geniuses of the angel race? Ling Huafeng smiled. I believe that Mu Yuan won't be weaker than anyone. Ling Yue said. Yue, you're too biased towards Mu Yun. The universe is vast, and there are countless geniuses. Who can claim to be number one? Moreover, no matter how talented he is, what can he do? Can he be compared to the entire angel race? He's just a disciple of a small Fengdu sword sect in the Iron Sea Star Field Group. He can't be compared to the angel race at all. Yue, you have to think about the overall situation. Ling Huafeng said. If you want to curry favor with the angel race, go do it yourself. Don't drag me into it. Ling Yue said with a cold face. You little girl. Big brother, you have to take care of Yue. Ling Huafeng glared at her and finally looked at Ling Huashua. During this process, Ling Huashua didn't say anything. No one knew what he was thinking. At this moment, he waved his hand and said, All right, all of you stop talking. Let's go back first. With a wave of his hand, everyone returned to the fairy palace. Yue, you go back and rest first. Also, all of you can disperse together. I'm going to cultivate. After returning to the fairy palace, Ling Huashua waved his hand. Ling Yue, Ling Huafeng, and the others took their leave one after another. After Ling Yue left, she went straight to the resource temple of the elves, intending to retrieve a batch of elven with hearts for Lu Ming. As for Ling Huafeng, Ling Piao, and the father and daughter pair, they returned to their residence. No, I definitely can't let Ling Yue and Mu Yun walk together. It wasn't easy for me to get on the angel race's path. I definitely can't let it end like this. As soon as she returned to her residence, Ling Piao immediately cried out. Her expression was extremely sinister and ugly, completely different from before. Others might not know, but they knew very well that the reason why Ling Yue had a marriage alliance with the angel race was because she was the one who pulled the strings. By chance, she got to know that monstrous genius of the angel race. After knowing that he liked beauties, she introduced Ling Yue to him. The monstrous genius of the angel race fell in love with Ling Yue the moment he saw her. He immediately sent someone to the elf race, saying that he wanted to marry Ling Yue and marry her. Originally, Ling Huashua didn't want to agree, but after Ling Huafeng's lobbying and analyzing the pros and cons, Ling Huashua finally agreed. Chapter 3897. The marriage with the Angel clan had to succeed. This was because once she succeeded, Ling Piao would be able to connect with the Angel clan. The Angel clan had a very good relationship with the Heavenly Palace. Once they were connected, their family would rise to the top in the future. There would be endless benefits. Therefore, Ling Yue had to marry the genius of the Angel clan. She absolutely could not be destroyed by others. As for the genius of the Angel clan, they couldn't be bothered to care whether Ling Yue would be happy or not if she married him. What did it have to do with them whether Ling Yue was happy or not? As long as they were happy, it was fine. I didn't expect that Mu Yun's talent to be so high. Even Hua Xing was easily defeated. I think Ling Huashua is already hesitating. Ling Huafeng also said with a gloomy face, We can't go on like this. We must suppress that brat Mu Yun and even get rid of him. Ling Piao's eyes flashed with cold killing intent. No one could stop her future. If there was, she would make the other party disappear forever. How? This is the Elf Palace. No one can make a move here without being discovered. As long as Mu Yun lives here, we can't send anyone to make a move. Ling Huafeng said. Then let's just ignore it. When that old fellow Ling Huashua changes his mind, it'll be troublesome, Ling Piao said. She didn't have the slightest respect for Ling Huashua. Don't worry, I already have an idea. Ling Huafeng smiled. Dad, you have an idea. What idea? Ling Piao asked quickly. Didn't Mu Yin defeat Hua Xing? He even humiliated him in public. How could Hua Xing be willing to accept such humiliation? And Hua Xing's big brother, Hua Tian, is a monstrous genius of the divine emperor realm. As long as we encourage him, what do you think Hua Tian will do? Ling Huafeng said with a smile, looking like a cunning old fox. That's right. Why didn't I think of that? Father is wise. Ling Piao's eyes lit up. Of course. We can't put all our hopes on Hua Tian. If Hua Tian is no match for him, I still have a plan. Ling Huafeng said. Hua Tian will be defeated. Hua Tian is a monstrous genius of the first layer of the divine emperor realm. Although he wasn't as strong as the current Hua Xing when he was at the quasi-emperor realm, he wasn't too far away. Ling Piao and her brother both had looks of disbelief on their faces. There was a huge gap between the divine emperor realm and the quasi-emperor realm. Previously, there was a huge gap between them that was difficult to cross. The primitive universe was extremely vast. There were countless races and races. The number of living beings was like the sand of the Ganges, endless. The number of geniuses was also endless. Among the countless heavenly legends, there were less than 1,000 people in the untainted universe who were able to fight against divine emperors at the level of quasi-emperor. 1,000 might seem like a lot, but in the context of the Your Wilds universe, it was a very small number. There were 10,000 powerful races on the great, desolate 10,000 races roll, but he could only fight against ordinary cultivators of the first godly emperor layer. As for Hua Tian, he was already a cultivator of the first godly emperor layer. Now that he had broken through to the first godly emperor layer, his fighting abilities were even more astonishing. Who could defeat a cultivator of the first godly emperor layer? They couldn't believe it. I don't believe that Mu Yin can defeat Hua Tian either. However, you have to remember that you have to be prepared for all eventualities. Ling Huafeng said. What is Father's second plan? Ling Piao asked. It's simple. The Holy Seed test of the Fairy Clan is about to begin. If Hua Tian can't defeat Mu Yin, I will suggest to Ling Huashua that Mu Yin should participate in the Holy Seed test to prove his talent. At that time, he will not only have to face the geniuses of the Fairy Clan, but also the dangers of the Holy Seed test. Hee. Ling Huafeng said. Wonderful, wonderful. Father, you're the smartest. Ling Piao and Ling Piao's eyes lit up. After Hua Xing left, no one else challenged Lu Ming. Lu Ming was disappointed. He returned to the palace, and the young people of the Fairy Clan also left. However, news of the recent battle spread like wildfire throughout the elf tribe. When Lu Ming returned to the palace, he took out a piece of spirit wood core and absorbed it. The fairy wood core contained a huge amount of life essence and was very pure. It was easy to absorb and was a rare treasure. If an ordinary person swallowed a fairy wood core, they would immediately be reborn. Not only would they be immune to diseases and poisons, but they would also have a lifespan of 10,000 years. Lu Ming held the fairy wood core in his hand. His cells trembled slightly, and a powerful suction force burst out. The life essence in the fairy wood core was quickly absorbed by Lu Ming. It rushed into each of his cells and turned into Lu Ming's potential. After absorbing the fairy wood core, Lu Ming's potential increased by 1%. Don't underestimate this 1% because Lu Ming's cultivation base was much deeper than before. The amount of energy needed to increase one's potential by 1% was already very shocking. An ordinary divine emperor-level herb might not even be able to increase one's potential by 1%. Lu Ming was quite satisfied. After absorbing one, he took out another one and started to absorb it, one after another. In a short day, 80 of the 100 fairy wood cores that Lu Ming had won had been absorbed and refined. This way, the potential stored in Lu Ming's cells had reached 100%. Of course, not all of this 100% potential would be able to help Lu Ming break through to the divine emperor realm. It was definitely not enough. He would probably need to do it many times before he could break through to the divine emperor realm. I need to find a place to help me develop my potential. However, this place is not suitable. I should first cultivate the secret technique. After settling Ling Yue's matter, I'll find a place to cultivate properly. Lu Ming pondered. Just as he was thinking, Ling Yue came to find him. Mu Yin, this is for you. Ling Yue threw a storage ring to Lu Ming. Lu Ming received it and scanned it with his spiritual sense. He discovered that there were 1,000 fairy wood cores neatly arranged inside. There are 1,000 fairy wood cores inside. This is the largest amount of fairy wood cores that I can gather within my power. It should be able to help you break through to the divine emperor realm, right? Ling Yue said, "Thank you." Lu Ming cupped his fists and put it away. He wasn't sure if 1,000 fairy wood cores could help him break through to the divine emperor realm. But without a doubt, this was an astonishing amount of wealth. It would be of great help to Lu Ming. You should cultivate well and break through to the divine emperor realm as soon as possible. My second uncle and the others will have nothing to say. My lifelong happiness will all be in your hands. Ling Yue said. Her beautiful eyes stared at Lu Ming with splendor. Lu Ming quickly coughed a few times. Why did Ling Yue's words sound so profound? Then let's put it this way. I'm going into seclusion to cultivate. Lu Ming quickly found a reason to chase Ling Yue away. You're tuning in to the Thunder Spear YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.